Getting your guaranteed maximum refund with TaxSlayer feels like discovering a refund tree has grown in your backyard.
I'm the refund tree.
Sawing off its branches.
Hey.
Feeding them through a wood chipper.
My branches! My beautiful branches!
And dancing in its refund rain. Start for free and get your guaranteed maximum refund. TaxSlayer. File fearlessly.
What's going on? 6 o'clock. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I am Robert Walsh. NFL Combine getting underway today, and 104.5 The Zone is well represented. Titans Radio, Ramon Foster, Buck Rising, all in Indianapolis. No on-the-field drills, mostly team interviews, and everyone just gathering their bearings in the home of the Colts. One man who will not be gathering his bearings, that's Penn State defensive end and potential number 1 overall pick, Abdul Carter, as he will not work out at the Combine because he has not fully recovered from a shoulder injury he suffered versus Boise State. Carter played through the injury against Notre Dame in the semifinal playoff game, but only recently was cleared to resume training. We fully expect, this is the quote from his agent, by the way, we fully expect Abdul to be recovered in time to work out at his pro day at Penn State, and he will perform at a very high level. But it is not just NFL draft moves being made at the Combine, as Daniel Jeremiah reminded us yesterday and tweeted, I'll be shocked if we don't see a flurry of extensions done over the next 7 to 10 days. Teams with money and space and the free agent group isn't very exciting. Good time to lock up your key young guys. Look out for those deals to get done this week in Indianapolis. For all your foundation repair and your waterproofing needs, you got to go to USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Good morning and welcome in to your Tuesday right here on 104.5 The Zone. This is RKW, dividing and conquering. To start off your Tuesday morning, 615-737-1045. The R in RKW is in INDY. Indianapolis, where Ramon Foster hosts the show from the NFL Combine this morning. Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling here in studio. Robert Walsh makes the show happen as the Underwear Olympics begin. What do the Titans hope to learn about the quarterbacks in Indianapolis? We'll talk about that this morning. Setting the table for Mike Borgonzi and Brian Callahan, talking with the media and talking with Buck Rising today on this radio station. Austin Price of VolQuest at 8:20, and lots more over the next 4 hours, which we stream live as well on 104.5 The Zone TV, Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch. Tuesday, February the 25th. Good morning. How are we doing?
We're doing good. Moan, you got a haircut.
And we can't hear, but that's okay.
Okay.
No, he can't hear you, I'm assuming.
Okay.
You can probably do it the other way.
Fair enough. All right.
But he did get a haircut, if you're watching the FNF chat. Looks nice. Looks very nice.
Did he?
I don't know.
When did he have
Looks
time? They got straight in the car. Unless
I think it was the weekend.
Maybe I didn't notice it
Indianapolis.
yesterday because he was wearing a hat or something. I can't even remember.
Okay.
Looks like he got his ears trimmed.
Fair
what
enough.
do they call it?
Your
men?
ears lowered.
Lowered, that's what it is.
Your ears lowered,
trimmed.
yes.
That would not be a good thing.
That would be different. That would be different. Yeah, well, we'll work on Ramon hearing us. And I guess, Ramon, you just interrupt us if you are hearing the sound of my voice and can notice what I'm saying.
We'll figure it out. You just do your thing.
Power of live radio.
Exactly.
Anyway, Combine's here. Let's do it.
It is. I'm excited. It is the Underwear Olympics. Not truly excited about that part of it, but excited to just see what comes out of the Combine, Will, because we've talked so much about how much is on the Tennessee Titans with the number 1 overall pick, and this is where those meetings start to happen. This is where the talk starts to kind of form between teams up in their suites. We've heard Coach Mack and Ramon Foster talk about it. But I'm excited to actually hear what comes out of it. Do they start to talk about Cam Ward more? Is the Abdul Carter not doing the field activities a thing? We'll see.
We definitely will. We definitely will. I'm hearing some rustling in the background.
All right, do you hear me now?
There it
He
is.
got you. There he is.
Hey,
Welcome.
there we go. There we go. Good morning, everybody.
How we doing?
What's up, Moan?
Man, not much, man. Ready to get this day started. A lot of everything going on here today, man. I'm super excited to see what this week is going to do, not just today and just the workouts. Today is going to be very fascinating with how everybody goes about introducing themselves, saying what the players look like. And we're supposed to have a few sit-downs today with Titans Radio, too. So that's going to be, all in all, I think a good start to the week, man. And, of course, everybody else, I just heard Kayla and you guys talk about it. The storylines, what this week will actually unfold for us, man. Bert sent us some information yesterday that says a lot of veteran deals will be done post this week, man. So it'll be a fascinating approach to see what 2025 off-season free agency and draft season look like, because every year I think it's going to be fireworks, and more times than not, the NFL does not let you down. So I'm looking forward to it.
So what is the scene around you? Like, is Kirby Allen Kirby with you? Are you the only one awake yet where all the radio
Seems like
stations and teams are broadcasting from over there?
It is a big convention center box room, man. And actually, we are in the Hoosier corridor. Shout out to Buck School, okay? Just the only
goodness.
shout out he'll get is when he sleep, okay? I see your reaction. Look, but right now, there's 7 people in this building. Every team, I feel like, has a radio table. And there are also, like, other stations here, too. Like, I see a Marquee Sports Network, and there's a Cheesehead TV, too. So there's a lot of everything going on. Yeah, that's Green Bay. Yesterday, Sean McDermott was actually already having a sit-down with the Buffalo Bills radio team. They have a huge setup here, man. But I noticed that anyway, because Buffalo's one of those big fan base, small city type of teams. And whenever we went up there this past year, man, they run a night before the game podcast. So they really do it big as a Bills culture, man. So he had a big sit down with them yesterday, and it'll be a whole lot of motion soon as Kirby gets here. He's not here yet.
Oh, he's not here yet. Okay.
Gotta get his credentials because the NFL is very strict about who they let into these buildings, okay?
I'm surprised Kirby wasn't the one opening
I was gonna
the
say.
building. I mean, all these NFL security people are very familiar with his game.
He's been there so long, made that trip,
I
right?
know. Of all the times I've ever been on a remote with Kirby or out of town with Kirby, this is the first time I've ever beat Kirby to the destination. From my understanding, he's supposed to be able to get his credentials at 7 or 8 Eastern. Right now, 7 o'clock Eastern. By the way, why is Indianapolis on Eastern time?
Yeah, it's weird.
It's
literally
Mm-hmm.
vertical. It should be a
Straight
Central
up.
Time city.
Yeah.
Besides that, he's not here just yet. I'm working off my AirPods and my laptop, but hopefully the sound is good, and Kirby will come in and save the day like he always does on these road
I'm
trips.
gonna put a sizable wager if I was a betting man on Kirby being in there before 7 a.m. Central. He will find a way. There's somebody like Coach Mack throwing a tennis ball for the service dog yesterday that you guys put on social media. There will be some kind of privilege for Kirby Allen Kirby that he will use to get there before the time that the NFL thinks he needs to be getting there.
No doubt. Will, see, that's the thing, too, about yesterday. That wasn't just a service dog. Okay, he's a serviceman dog that Coach Mack decided that it was now his new best friend, okay? That dog is trained to sniff bombs, okay?
Yeah, that dog specifically
Don't you have
probably
to
has a
ask to
vest
pet?
that says
Yeah.
"Do not pet," but it's like the Soviet Russia jokes. Like, no, with Coach Dave McGinnis, service dog pet him. Like it's the opposite of the way most humans get to interact.
Easily, man. The dog was a beautiful German Shepherd, man. And it was a huge dog, too. He was 4 years old. He was all black with brown feet. Beautiful dog, okay? On his back is "Do not pet, do not touch." And lo and behold, Coach Mack has this dog just rubbing them down, man, and playing fetch with him inside the convention room. I'm just like, well, I know one thing for sure. He's never, if Coach Mack never talks to another human a day in his life, he will have the best pet buddies around him, okay? But not just that, the dog had the coolest name, so I've never heard a dog named Nacho.
It's pretty good.
That by far, that's That's pretty good. I got to give it to him. And he also met a secondary dog after that by the name, I think, of Hank. He told Nacho that Hank was acting a little bit better than he was, but the handlers of Hank and Nacho both said they didn't know how the dogs were going to get along together. So we were taking wagers on who we thought was going to have the most balls at the end of the day. So I think I'm putting my money on Nacho at this point. But he was a good boy.
Definitely the cooler name. Yeah, Coach Mack's the dog whisperer. I remember when I first brought Red to meet Coach Mack, I was like, man, this guy just knows what dogs like. Like, he really is truly the dog whisperer.
He is. And it's funny because every normal citizen in America, okay, that goes to sporting events, none of us ever pet the dog that has do not touch, do not pet, or working dog on them, except for Coach Mack, okay? Except for Coach Mack.
Well, this week in Indy, the Titans are looking for DAWGs. Oh, transition. No, it's fine. It's an overused term.
Leave.
Did you get any, you break out any hives? Did you, most importantly, have any nosebleeds, Ramon, as you walked back in to the convention center? Do you get any, like, secondhand nervousness from the combine still?
Just a little bit, man, because the process of what this all is, like, this is over 300 guys chasing their dreams. And the only thing that pops up in my mind, it is, God dang, I'm so glad I don't have this anxiety. That's like, So there is a little bit of PTSD, man, but I'm seeing a whole lot of familiar faces that I've crossed paths with either in Nashville or just here at the combine. I saw a few of my old Steeler gang reps that were around yesterday too. Just a little bit of everybody here. It really is a hodgepodge of just folks here. But, no, I've removed myself from that dark place of having to run a 40, having to bench press, having to jump a vertical. You know how many times offensive linemen jump off the football field?
0.0 times.
Not much at all.
No.
Okay, not much at all. But the only thought I had about doing this process was, dang, we're right back at it, and here's a new, fresh crop of guys who have no idea what this NFL life is about, but I'm equally excited for them, too. You ever had that feeling? It's like you see freshmen walking on campus, they have no clue what these next 4 years are going to be like. That's what I feel like looking at some of these guys. We walked around the city a little bit last night, and you can see some of the prospects out with their agents. Oh, yeah. And all I can think to myself, they're either trying to, ease them over, last minute storylines, or just advice that's not going to be any good to them, because there's nothing the agents can tell them whenever they go in those meeting rooms or whenever they go to perform. So it's cool to see, though. A lot of bright eyes and bushy tails, man, when it comes down to these guys not knowing what's in front of them.
Was it that 1 year, was it Justin Fields who gave, like, the homeless man on the corner, like, money? Like, there was something that happened in Indy.
Malik did that. Malik Willis did it a few years ago.
Because I remember that getting a lot of, you were just talking about just running into, prospects in downtown Indianapolis. And it's such a small downtown if you've never been there. It's really quaint. So it is easy to just see that kind of stuff. But that just reminded me of that situation and how much, good pub that got when that all happened.
Yeah, I think Justin did it. Malik also did it, man. But like you said, the business of Indianapolis is still going on here too. Last night, if I'm not mistaken, I think they had a Pacers game against Denver, because I saw a lot of Joker jerseys last night too. So this city has still got a lot going on. I will report it's not as cold as it was last year. Last year was frigid. This year is pleasantly cold, if that makes sense to you guys.
You got all the sky bridges to walk through anyway, so you'll be fine. You'll make it.
By the way, the most clutch thing any downtown can have.
It's probably why they don't lose it.
I know. If you have an entertainment city like Nashville, okay, maybe the crossways and cross bridges don't work for you. But here in Indianapolis during the combine, you literally do not have to go outside to get to your destination. Even St. Elmo's is like you walk the skywalks and then you just cross the block. That's all you do, man. And you're right at St. Elmo's. Awesome setup here in Indianapolis.
Coming up, Ramon in Indy, Kayla and I here in Nashville. We'll hit the headlines at the beginning of the NFL Combine. Workouts begin on Thursday, but the meetings and the intrigue, the discussions, they have already begun. On Abdul Carter, on Matthew Stafford interest. We'll tell you everything you need to know from last night in Indy. Coming up next.
Is your concrete in need of repair? Maybe your sidewalk is shifting or your driveway is cracked and sinking. Mine is a little cracked right now. I need to get USS over there. Speaking of which, man, maybe your porch steps, maybe they've moved on you. Shifting concrete, guess what, y'all? They can create a dangerous situation and trip hazard around your home. It's also just a big eyesore, too. It's Ramon Foster. Whatever's going on with your concrete, call United Structural Systems. Ask them about their polyurethane foam injections. You've heard me speak about USS for a long time, man. It's the same company that's provided superior foundation repair and waterproof in the Middle Tennessee since 1994. Well, guess what? They can also fix your sunken or settling concrete. USS uses polyurethane foam injections to lift and repair your sunken concrete in a matter of minutes. Lifted concrete can be walked on immediately and driven on after 30 minutes. So don't go through that long, expensive process of ripping out and replacing concrete. Reach out to the people that I trust, man. You can go to USSTN.com. That's USSTN.com, or you can call them the old school way at 615-488-7855. United Structural Systems.
RKW on 104.5 The Zone this morning on a Tuesday in Nashville and in Indianapolis. I always think of the Charles Barkley commercial, in the Annapolis. Anybody ever think about that? From the NCAA tournament a couple years ago? That's probably just me.
I don't remember that.
Nah, that one doesn't register to me. I never heard Charles say that. Well, I think you're making that up.
No, it was one of the commercials that he and Jim Nance and Spike Lee do for the NCAA tournament.
I do remember
when the Final Four was in Indianapolis. Mm-hmm. And he accidentally drove to Annapolis, Maryland, and he'd go, "I'm in the Annapolis."
Yeah, I do remember.
Yes, I do remember that one. Now, that's on me, Will, for calling you a liar.
Ramon
that's
is
on me.
in the Annapolis this morning for the NFL Combine. Abdul Carter will not be in the Annapolis on the field. Adam Schefter of ESPN saying, essentially saying what Drew Rosenhaus said about Abdul Carter, saying, "We fully expect him to be recovered in time to work out at his pro day at Penn State, which is March the 28th. But no drills at the NFL Combine for the Penn State edge rusher. Should we be concerned?"
In my opinion, absolutely not, man. You know what you're getting out of Abdul Carter. You know the athlete that he is, okay? For him to go to an off-ball linebacker to rushing off the edge. What we do know is this: for him to be an off-ball linebacker, he's got to have good speed and be able to work side to side as it pertains to his ability to get after the quarterback and just his abilities as a defensive player anyway. You see the explosiveness that he possessed on the tape that he plays. That's where a lot of these guys, and it sucks for us, the people that cover him and the consumers of it, or a lot of these guys have the ability to just say, "Hey, look at my tape." He, to me, is one of those guys where you just look at his tape and let him get this injury healed as quick as possible. Because, again, I mean, he could run if you want him to, but if I'm not mistaken, Abdul Carter has a shoulder injury.
That's
so
correct.
His ability to move and, catch interceptions, what they will want to see him do in bag drills, is really moot when it comes down to it, man. But it's fascinating. You said Drew Rosenhaus is his agent. Drew Rosenhaus, is in the business of high caliber injured players, because I think another one of his clients is the injured Ohio State tackle Josh Simmons too. So Drew's got a whole lot of politicking. Yeah, Drew's got a whole lot of politicking to do, man, to make sure his guys' values stay high. But with Abdul, I like his tape, and then when it comes down to how people will view him and where you will play him in the NFL too, maybe we'll see that at his pro day.
Yeah, and Drew Rosenhaus's agent also said, we fully expect Abdul to be recovered in time to work out at his pro day at Penn State, and he will perform at a high level. So they do expect him to be recovered a few weeks probably after the Combine. But I understand not putting somebody who could eventually be the number one overall pick out on the field to do any more harm to an injury that is probably close to being fully recovered, if we want to be honest. But why risk it? And why risk it on a stage like this, right? I understand the move. As much as we want to see these guys that are possible number one overall picks for the Titans, Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, now Abdul Carter, that doesn't look like any of them will be, doing any of the on-field stuff. As much as we want to see it, you have to think about the bigger picture for them. So he will be there, correct? Like, he's going to be at the Combine. So we still might hear what comes out of some of the interview stuff. Like, did they have a good interview with him? Those type of things. Maybe we hear a little bit more from the Abdul Carter camp in that aspect. But yeah, as for on the field stuff, I'm not too concerned about it, as long as we maybe get to see him at pro day.
The other thing too, for I guess, not for Cam Ward, for Abdul Carter is this too. You hope that this injury is just one that he doesn't have to deal with moving forward too, as it pertains to having a history with it. I don't think he's a guy that has a long history of it, but at his size, playing against bigger offensive linemen or bigger players in general at the line of scrimmage is just one of those things where hopefully this is a one-off and he won't have a history of being injured and soft tissues and stuff like that as it pertains to his ability to be a good pro. Because when you're a top 3, top 5 guy, your availability is what makes you great. And that's what I'm hoping for him when it comes down to moving forward with his injury.
Do you think he, though, needs to? Because this is the small knock on him, because there's not a lot of things to pick apart about Abdul Carter. But do you feel like maybe the weight and being able to put on a little more weight is something that teams are looking at with him just because of what you mentioned?
I do think those types of things, and to start off training camp or this time of the year, hitting that number is good. We spoke about the Senior Bowl with Mike Green, the outside edge rusher from Marshall, right? Yeah. He showed up at over 250. Everybody, tipped their hat to him. It was like they didn't know he could hold it down like that. So for a guy like Abdul, yes, being, let's say, 220 to 235 off ball inside linebacker is perfect. So when you got to go up against guys that get after you and put their hands on you and lean on you, right. Him holding weight potentially at 250. But here's what I would tell you. Coaches are sticklers about weight, whether you're big or small. But in this league, what I will tell you is this. If you can play, they won't care whatsoever about what you weigh. Now, it can be a situation where you get fined. It can be a situation where it just becomes an issue for you. And you don't want those types of things. What do coaches say? I don't want no maintenance, or I don't want low maintenance. I want no maintenance when it comes down to players. And just having that over their head matters. I'm not sure Von Miller is a 250-pound player, but he's a specialty piece when it comes down to rushing. Mm-hmm. It may come down to health and just duration of his body taking a beating over 17 regular season games.
Yeah, Abdul Carter listed at 6'3", 252 last year by Penn State. So I don't know if he is probably the same weight he was when he was an inside linebacker, right. But perhaps something to monitor. He never missed a game due to injury in his college career.
Good. Yeah,
I think anybody overly concerned, I think, about the injury for him, I think maybe hasn't done their due diligence, respectfully. Right. Like he played 42 games in 3 years, played 16 games this past season, he had 12 sacks. I think the bigger thing for me is that even when he had the left shoulder injury against Notre Dame, he had a sack in that game and was still just wrecking a really good offensive line for the Irish in that game. Yeah. So, I mean, anyone who watched the Notre Dame game knows that the shoulder was barely even an issue then while it was still hurt.
That shows to me, too, he wants to play, right? He is serious about his craft, and he wanted to contribute even though he was probably, like a lot of guys in this league, in pain. But that just shows a lot about who he is as a player, too.
No doubt. But again, when you're top three, I mean, he can make his own schedule at this point right now. So it'll be fascinating what other storylines come out about him. Any team who is looking for a piece like him, you definitely want him. He won't make it past 5, in my personal opinion, if not number 1 overall.
Other reporting yesterday from Albert Breer of SI.com says the Giants, Steelers, Browns, and Raiders have shown interest in Matthew Stafford. He does add that there are unnamed others, and that each of those 4 obviously need a starting quarterback in 2025. A release with a post-June 1st designation would help the Rams concerning Stafford, would cut in half the $45.5 million cap charge they would take by trading him, splitting the number over 2 years. Of course, they still have to carry his 2025 cap charge of $49.6 million until June 1st. That does seem like the big deal that might get done in Indy that's not NFL draft related, right? The whole Matthew Stafford sweepstakes are going to have to be resolved pretty quickly and might get done by somebody who really wants him, or just by the Rams finally getting it through to him that, like, hey, we're your best option while all the teams are in Indy this week.
It is, man. What's crazy is this, though, too. They're describing their situation as awkward. There's a lot of awkwardness around their scenario. You know what I call that? It's just good business. At that point, like, you empower him to go find the trade that he wants, or the team that's willing to give up some compensation for him. All right, you put the ball on his court. It's not a situation where a team won't take him. It comes down to negotiation. It's the awkwardness is weird to actually say, in my opinion, because again, this is a guy, Matthew Stafford, that's brought you a Super Bowl ring. help stabilize your franchise, not once but twice. You got to think post Super Bowl, they've pretty much invented themselves into a new team right now as it pertains to their style of play. And it's because of a guy like Matthew Stafford. So that awkwardness, I mean, they can just throw that out the window to me. Either you pay him or you trade him for less, and you might have to take a L if you are the Los Angeles Rams. So I say good on Stafford for making it feel weird like that, just because that just means to me that the teams don't have the power that they want when it comes to because of the money or because of the cap hit that they have to take. Again, I know teams have to operate a certain type of way, but they can make this happen. They can simply just pay Matthew Stafford if he wants to report it $50 million from what Peter Schrager said he wanted. They can make it happen, especially if he has some value to him. Cut him.
I think we learned a little bit this last offseason, too, with the whole Deebo Samuel 49ers situation. You want to talk about awkward. That's about as awkward as it can get in terms of doing something to try to get this guy, one of a key piece of your team, obviously not a quarterback, but a big part of your offense to stay. And he's, going out there and putting at TikToks and all of this stuff. Matthew Stafford, if this is awkward for Matthew Stafford in the Rams, then I'll take that any day because it's a bigger position that you're having to deal with. And I understand any time that you're giving a guy permission to go do his thing and that guy is going to try to reach out and see what he can do in terms of other teams, it's going to be awkward. But I think that in this situation, like we saw with the Niners, I think it will all come back to Stafford staying there. Because like we spoke about yesterday, guys, just there's not many teams that I could see that being a fit for this point of his career. And if he still wants to win, and I would think any quarterback, any competitor like Matthew Stafford wants to win when it's all said and done. And I still think the LA Rams give him the best chance to do that.
They do because of the youth movement that they have, specifically on defense for me. I like the idea of him being able to stay there because this is all one of those drama moments right there with the storyline throughout the course of the year. If they go and win, and they can play well in the NFC West too. I mean, to me, I think they're one of the strongest teams on that side in that division. They proved it also by the way they played. They had a young defensive player win Defensive Rookie of the Year, and they got a bunch of pieces in place. What they're trying to do right now with the Rams is find themselves out and get a draft pick to be able to move up, potentially get a quarterback or get a cheaper quarterback if they choose to go that route too. I'm not mad at the fact that all of this has happened. Like I told you a second ago, I'm somewhat excited that it is kind of awkward for them. Mm-hmm. And they got to somewhat figure it out. Again, he's under contract. This is the contract that Matthew Stafford agreed with, his agent set up for him, and also the team agreed upon it also. It's not their fault that his cap hit is that high or they want to move on from him. With the salary cap moving up the way it did too, they have some wiggle room. It just really boils down to either you do or you don't in this situation. And right now they're letting Matthew Stafford do the heavy lifting by going to find his own trade partner, which it's the same teams that Will brought up yesterday. It's Browns, Giants, Jets, Steelers. I think were the teams when it comes down to potentially getting a guy like Matthew Stafford.
His value to me just feels like what Pittsburgh is willing to pay him, because at this point in Matthew Stafford's career, I still just feel like he wants to win. Like Kayla said, like I don't understand him choosing Cleveland over LA, which I don't understand anyone for any reason choosing Cleveland over LA. Unless he just doesn't want to win anymore and just wants to make $50 million. Like, if you just want to get paid, like, buddy, we could find you a lot of places to go throw footballs. But I just, that would surprise me for him, considering the option he is currently tied to gives him the opportunity to win. So, we'll see.
I'd be shocked if Pittsburgh anteed up $50 million. Yeah. Considering they are in a soft rebuild too, but they got the cap space for it, and they have a strong need at quarterback too. This is good. This is like a few years in a row that we've had big franchise quarterbacks have to make big decisions when they come down to the offseason too. But this is the week a lot of those deals get done.
Other headline yesterday, Boise State running back Ashton Jeanty will skip on-field drills at the NFL Combine. Still expected to take part in team interviews and medical screenings, all of these things, but we will not see a 40, a 3-cone drill, a vertical, broad, jump, bench press, all those things. We will have to wait until Boise State's Pro Day later in March. Dane Brugler has Ashton Jeanty as his number 5 overall prospect. And, of course, last season, 2,800 yards from scrimmage, nearly 30 touchdowns on a nation-leading 397 touches. This is the example of a player that does not need to do the combine. I think we know everything we need to know about Ashton Jeanty based on the tape.
Yeah, we do, man. You saw his pull-away speed at running back. You saw his size. You saw his power. You saw his ability to be in and out of the backfield. I'm getting baseball and football mixed up here, talking about outfield. But he has a lot of tools in his toolbox, man, that he uses often. And there's nobody, in my opinion, like you just said, Will, that's the close number 2 to him at being number 1, man. Good on him. By the way, Dane Brugler, we'll have a sit down with him today also. Nice. So I'm looking forward to that one, man. So a lot of who's around here.
Yeah, I would love to see Ashton Jeanty do all the 40 stuff. Again, I'm going to be selfish about something like that, being a running back, and he is such a spectacular athlete. But by no means am I not understanding that he doesn't want to do any of that. He doesn't have to. He is by far the best running back in this class. Even with the devaluing of running backs nowadays, we're going to see him go pretty high. And we don't see that a lot these days with running backs going as high as maybe he'll go this year, just kind of anointing how special he really is at that position. And this, by all means, guys, is a really deep running back class too, but he definitely leads the way.
No doubt.
Yeah, and not just that though, but the reemergence, I think, putting the eyes back on how important a running back is to an offense. Saquon, Derek did that. It was a bunch of guys around the league this year that made that a possible thing, where teams are realizing they have to have a very valid quarterback right now. At least I'll say this, Kelly. You mentioned guys like him not going that high up, but you also look at this situation the same way I'm viewing what Pittsburgh did with Najee. Like with a first-round draft pick, if they got the talent where you feel comfortable in taking them, well, guess what you do? In those situations, you get your 4th, maybe 5th-year option out of them.
Yeah.
And then it sucks the way the business goes, but then you go find another one.
Coming up, shifting gears for a moment, more honors for Chaz Lanier and Tennessee basketball as they get ready for LSU tonight. We're going to take a look at what Tennessee needs to do in order to be a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. Coming up next.
Finally here, Indianapolis.
Hansel Bowling, is your water heater not heating? Maybe your sink is leaking. Maybe the drain is clogged. Hey, available 24/7, 365. Our expert friends at Lee Company have you covered for all your plumbing needs. And right now, you can enjoy $30 off a plumbing service for a limited time. You just got to contact Lee Company today at 615-567-1000 or head online to leecompany.com for an appointment to take care of your home's plumbing from top to bottom. Again, that's $30 off your next plumbing service call at leecompany.com. With over 80 years of experience, they've been trusted since 1944. Open 24/7 with 14 community locations in Tennessee, Kentucky, and Alabama. Lee Company is a staple here in the Middle Tennessee area. And when you've been trusted since 1944, you learn how to do business the right way. I love working with these guys. They've got over 1,700 employees, 1,000 vehicles in their fleet. That means when you got a problem, you need to call them. They are there in a flash. 615-567-1000. That's the number to call, or head online to leecompany.com. That's Lee Company. All you need. Wrapping up hour one this morning of RKW with Ramon Foster in Indianapolis. Kayla Anderson and Will Bowling here in Nashville, 615-737-1045, the number. More honors for Tennessee guard Chaz Lanier yesterday, earning SEC Player of the Week, along with Alabama's Mark Sears. Chaz, of course, 30 points, made 8 threes in Tennessee's 77-69 win at Texas A&M. The Vols in Baton Rouge tonight at LSU. Guys, if they run the table, if Tennessee wins their last 4 games, do you believe they are a number 1 seed?
Last 4 games, Alabama this
LSU. Weekend, at LSU tonight, at Ole Miss next week, South Carolina in Knoxville the following Saturday.
Yeah, the Alabama game would be big, yes. If they get if they get that game, I do think they should be in the strong consideration for probably the 4th number 1 seed. But, Will, they got the goods, man, when it comes down to the players. They got the goods when it comes down to the culture, how they won, who they've beat. Also, I hate to say it like this, but close losses, too. Like, the Auburn game still hits me, man. And I know the Vanderbilt upset. I'm not over that one. That was good on Vandy. But they have righted most of their wrongs since I feel like the Vandy game and since that 30-point smacking that Florida gave to them. They actually had the opportunity to return that back to Florida and had some get back to Vanderbilt too. So they have a case for it. 4th number 1 seed, but I wouldn't be mad if they're the first 2 also, depending on the bracket now.
Yeah, it definitely could have helped if Ole Miss could have continued to not become a team that's skidding at the end of the season, to have maybe 2 ranked teams there at the end of the year. But I think when you look at it and you look at the Alabama ranking, they are right underneath Tennessee when it comes to the overall rankings right now in college basketball. So that, I still think they consider Alabama a really good team. Yeah, because Tennessee sits at 5, Alabama sits at 6. And when you look at who's above them right now, you've got Houston, Florida, who's playing really good basketball, and, of course, Duke and Auburn at number 1. I still think if they finish with wins across the board against Alabama, especially getting that game, because if they don't get that game, there's no hope in getting a 1 seed. I think there's still a chance, guys.
Yeah. The other thing, too, that the Vols have done, the ESPN games, the primetime games also that they've played in, I feel like more times than not this year, they have answered the bell when it comes down to entertainment, who they beat, how they won in those situations right there. And the other part for me is there is a component of star power that I also think they have. Having Rick Barnes as your coach, I think, plays a part in it. And I'm not going to compare him to Coach K. I'm just going to mention him in the same sentence, okay? Coach K, I feel like, is one of those name guys that people like to see on TV, too. I feel like the same thing can go for Coach Barnes, too, when it comes down to having a leader. Coach Barnes is one of those legacy guys, a college basketball Hall of Famer in my eyes as it pertains to his career. And the games they've played on the late afternoon or night games, they have played well. Been a part of College Game Day. I think they got it upcoming this weekend with Alabama too, and more than anything, they got friggin' Dickie V going into Knoxville. They check every box. I'm gonna be real with y'all.
It should be a metric on your resume. How many Dickie V games did you win?
Especially coming back as long as he has been out.
That's the Vital Index.
The Vital. Thank you, man. That's all. And he just came back. You see what I'm saying?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. If you look at Florida, too, guys, in terms of their games down the stretch, they have a little bit more difficult task.
Good,
Bama's got the gauntlet.
Well, Bama got the gauntlet too, but I'm talking about Florida's right above Tennessee still. They've split that series with them this year, but they still have Texas A&M left and at Alabama. So they don't even get Alabama at home. So that'll be interesting to see what happens with them too.
So Joe Lenardi, in terms of the seeding, Tennessee, the number 1-2 seed, still in his bracketology at this point, and he still has the 4 number 1 seeds as the 3 SEC teams plus Duke. So he's got Auburn as his 1, Duke as his 2, Bama 3, and Florida 4.
Yeah.
To me, Alabama is the vulnerable team. I think Bama and their lack of defense and what they have to still do. They've got to play Mississippi State, go to Tennessee, host Florida, and go to Auburn. Those are Alabama's last
fun.
4 games. So I don't think it really the tricky thing is, like, Tennessee's results won't happen in a vacuum. First of all, Tennessee needs to beat Alabama this weekend in order to be a 1 seed. That I think is the most important part. But it's hard for me to say, if Tennessee just wins out and we don't know what the other teams are doing, right? Like, if Tennessee goes 3-1 in these last 4, but Alabama goes 1-3, Tennessee could still be a 1 seed at this point.
Sure.
If Tennessee goes 3-1 and then wins the SEC tournament, I think they're a 1 seed. Or if they go 4-0 and lose in the first round of the SEC tournament. So I think all that to say, there's a lot of basketball still left to play, and Tennessee is right there in the thick of it. This is a game they've got to win, though. They lose at LSU, then you can kiss 1 seed goodbye.
Yep.
Pretty much at this point.
Absolutely.
And the same thing, I feel like also Bama playing Mississippi State. They're not a throwaway team either in my eyes. So
No,
seeing
they
how,
upset A&M.
Yeah, they did. They did. And seeing how they will play them would be fascinating, too. But here's the thing that Will just alluded to a second ago. They will shoot the leather off the ball, okay? When it comes down to what Alabama's capable of, it's just a matter of, like Will said, where will their stops go? Where will their stops go when it comes down to how they win a basketball game? I'm thinking about the third Saturday.
They're not as good at winning football games anymore as they used to be. So
Football on our mind.
you are right on that. This from Mike Wilson yesterday, talking about Tennessee's offense. If you're a numbers nerd like I am with these things, Tennessee has an adjusted offensive efficiency that is the second best ever under Rick Barnes this season. The only Tennessee team with a better offensive rating from KenPom was the 2018-19 squad with Grant Williams as the SEC Player of the Year.
Nice.
So last season, Tennessee was worse on offense with Dalton Knecht, according to the numbers, than they are this year. That is very, very good news if you are a Tennessee fan wanting the Vols to make a deep run in the NCAA tournament.
You want to see, also speaking of the offensive side of things too, Will, did you see where Grant R. also reported too that Vols basketball coach, Rod Clark, also said the best lineups for the Vol is with Jemai Meshack on the court too.
I did see that.
That says a lot, man. And I know most of it's probably for defense, but his 2 putbacks he had back in the game were huge this past weekend. But also when you have him on the court, you have the consistency of his defense. I mean, I know he's lacking the offense, but to have Coach Rod Clark say that out loud, I thought was super unique on how they view that team and also view him being on the court.
It was funny, the full quote from Rod Clark, who did not hold back yesterday, and I love it, the way he protected his player. Said, analytics can say a lot of things, but when you're in the heat of the battle and you're in these games, to say that we're better when Jemai Meshack is not on the floor is kind of, I hate to use this word, but stupid. It just kind of is. We finished the game with 4 guards on the floor, and we were playing a massive, huge team. He's at the 4. He's doing just fine defensively. Talk your talk, Rod Clark.
Stupid.
There we go.
615-737-1045 our number. We'll get Ramon's take from the Combine. What is the most challenging part of the Combine from the player's perspective? What is this whole circus like for those who go through it the way Ramon did years ago? Not to make you feel old. That's next.
What's going on? 7:01. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone studios. I am Robert Walsh. The NFL Combine getting started today, and 104.5 The Zone well represented with Titans Radio, Ramon Foster, and Buck Rising. No on-the-field drills today, mostly team interviews, as everyone is gathering their bearings in Indianapolis. One man who will not be gathering his bearings is Penn State defensive end and potential number 1 overall pick Abdul Carter, as he will not work out at the Combine because he is not fully recovered from a shoulder injury he suffered against Boise State. Carter played through the injury versus Notre Dame in the semifinal playoff game, but was only recently cleared to resume training. Quote, "We fully expect Abdul to be recovered in time to work out at his pro day at Penn State, and he will perform at a very high level." But it's not just NFL draft moves being made today at the Combine. As Daniel Jeremiah tweeted, "I'll be shocked if we don't see a flurry of extensions done over the next 7 to 10 days. Teams with money and space and a free agent group that isn't very exciting. Good time to lock up your young guys." For all your foundation repair and your waterproofing needs, you got to go to USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Hour number 2 of RKW's Tuesday morning begins right now on 104.5 The Zone and streaming live on Zone TV. Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch. You hit the comment section. That is where you join the F&M Bank chat, and that is where you can chat with Ramon Foster from Indianapolis, Kayla Anderson, myself, Will Bowling here in Nashville, Robert Walsh, our producer, and the phone number is 615-737-1045. Schedule for workouts this week. We will not get to watch the Combine workouts until Thursday. Defensive linemen and linebackers get things started then. Friday is DBs and tight ends. Saturday, we watch quarterbacks, wide receivers, and running backs. I can already hear Ramon Foster saying, of course they put the QBs and the wide receivers and the backs on Saturday in prime time. And then Sunday, once everybody else is worked out, then we'll let the offensive line go out there, Ramon.
Coach Mack said hello, everybody.
Oh, what's up, Coach Mack?
He said, what's up, Coach Mack? And Buck is walking in with a smile on his face. I've never seen him walk in with a smile. Here he is. There's
Buck?
Coach Mack.
Good for him.
Y'all see Mack this morning?
What's up? We got him. Yes, absolutely.
Tell him he's the dog whisperer. Hi,
Taylor
Coach.
said you're
He
the
knows.
dog whisperer, and hello.
I've already seen all the dogs.
And there's Buck. Look at us, the all-black crew.
Where's Buck at?
Clothing
I can't
only,
see
though. Clothing on.
his little face. There he is. There he is.
I want to know how many Kilwins or whatever they're called breadsticks that Buck has already eaten this week.
Devoured.
Oh, my God. This is Buck's land right here.
It is, yeah.
Indiana is
Home
his
state.
land, man. And I'm going to say it on, I said it before, I owe him and Teron Davenport a night, okay?
Yes.
I've ghosted them so many times. I have.
Just take care of Tehran. That's what that's what you need to worry about.
We've been to numerous places,
Kilroy's,
man.
that's what I'm thinking of.
Kilroy's, okay. I've ghosted TD and Buck. I'm not doing it again, okay?
Crazy. Why do you? Those are our guys. We
They
love
are our
those people.
guys. That's what I'm saying, man. Not tonight. I got a full night's sleep last night. I'm gonna go work out midday. I hadn't yesterday morning. I worked out at like 4:30 at the crib. Today I said I'm gonna get a mid-afternoon, and I have energy for Buck and Tehran.
There
Very
you go.
good.
Well,
You better
Kilroy's
report back.
breadsticks are in Buck's future. Also in Buck's future,
heard
sit-downs
of that.
with Mike Berganzi and with Brian Callahan on his show later today. So stay tuned for that coming up on the Buck Rising Show. Ramon, what was the Combine like for you? What do you remember the most besides your nosebleed during your 40-yard dash and running what John Robinson affectionately called 5-2 slow? What do you remember the most about this experience?
Man, one, like I said, I will not mention the nosebleed. Everybody know that happened. But what I will say is, like, being around your peers that you know of but you don't know, that has a side of just anxiety to it also. You're measuring yourself next to them without actually, you know what I'm saying, sizing somebody up. So it's, okay, well, that guy looks like this and that guy looks like this. Well, I wonder what he's going to run. Well, heck, what am I going to run? And it's the long line of waiting till you wait. You wait to weigh in. And then when it comes down to the bench press, you count, like, I never forget counting guys in front of me, like, they were getting like 25, 28. And I was like, okay, well, I got to get this, man. You have in your head what you want it to look like. And when you get up there under that bar or to that line to where you're about to run that 3-cone at 40 or do your 225 bench press, it's just you and a ton of eyes. And in that, it's not an issue with performance. It's just how good will I perform? Because you can't go back. You are about to be judged, and at the end of the day, where you are is just what you are. And you hope that for a lot of the cases, specifically in mine, that your take kind of speaks for itself. And you're given that opportunity, and you hear guys time and time again, well, I wish I had done this. Well, I should have done that. And it's just a lot of no regret and just settle in for a very nervous, bumpy ride into getting your results that you train months for, that you'll only use once.
So your NFL Combine, you had a 7.96 3-cone drill.
Beautiful.
Solid. You went a 26-inch vertical.
I know I worked on that. I thought I was going to get 28 on that. So you go through those numbers, and I'll give you what I thought I was going to get. The 3-cone, I didn't really know a good number on that one. I guess like a 6.9.
That was a good number.
That was a good number?
Yeah,
okay.
7.96. According to Kentley Platty's relative athletic score, you were solid. You were in the yellow on your 3-cone drill. Your short shuttle was 4.98.
Ooh, that was the only 4.9 I ever ran.
Your broad jump was 7.8. Which, not the best, but again, why are linemen jumping, all right? Why do we have Ramon jumping?
Well, let me explain it to you, too. It's for correlation of explosiveness.
Okay.
It's what that is.
Well,
so
I can see that.
Okay, what's a good number, like 8.2, 8.4?
Oh, I couldn't tell you.
Probably.
Bert
It's a matter.
more about that than I would.
It seriously is a matter of inches with this type of stuff. But go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and chime in later.
Well, of course, your 40-yard dash was 5.66.
Okay, I ran a 5.56 also. They didn't put that one down. The number, the number I needed if I was playing tackle was at most a 5.3.
Yeah. Okay. Your 20-yard split was 3.3. Your 10-yard split was 2.0. Your 40-yard dash miles per hour, you were running 17.3 miles per hour. That sounds good.
So how in the hell did I run a 5.5?
Well, because you might have only been running the 17.3 miles per hour for like 10 of those meters, or maybe 5 of those meters.
That's all I needed, Will.
Then you had 20 reps in the bench.
I needed 25.
Yeah. Okay.
The minimum was 25, and I felt I ain't gonna lie to you.
That would have got you drafted?
No, you know what? Seriously. So here's the thing. Strength isn't my issue. It was never like I could bench press the house. It's the repetitions of it that did not work out for us. It's just like, Will, you are a better long distance runner than you are a sprinter.
Right.
Like, so I could, Kayla, most of our bench was probably like 495, 520.
Only.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
Get out of here.
The issue
Like
wasn't
it's nothing.
strength. Kayla, ask anybody I played against, like, you come over here, you're not leaving, okay? Like, you have checked into the hotel. Stay at the Moan Inn is what I would tell them, okay?
The Moan Inn.
The reps, though, I felt it, man, when I hit, like, rep 18. I said, oh, Lord, here we go. And I was just, it was just one of them days, man.
So you were 6'5", 328, 10.6 and a quarter hands, 33-inch arms.
Yeah.
What are you now, weight-wise?
Weight-wise, like 340.
Oh, I don't care.
No,
Ask me my weight, I'll tell you.
Yeah, like 340, Kayla. You good with that?
Yeah, that's fine. You know, a lot of, and I say that because a lot of offensive linemen specifically see the most drastic change in terms of their weight after their careers.
Yeah.
I mean, even D
working on
linemen,
that.
right? I mean, you look at some of these guys, you're like, whoa, are those the same players? I remember David Pollock in particular when I looked back at old photos of him at Georgia, and then, you know, when he was on in his ESPN days, I was like, dang, like he doesn't even look like the same person.
Yeah.
So it is for anybody
Joe
who
Thomas is like
changes.
that way
Joe
too.
Thomas, yeah, absolutely.
He's like that. Marquise is like that too.
Yeah.
So,
one quick question for you, if I can get this in. I'm curious as just how tiresome this week is, because I remember talking to Joshua Perry. He's been on the show before with NBC Sports, played at Ohio State and went to the Combine. I remember him telling me specifically how tiring the week really was, just mentally and physically. He said it was probably one of the most tiring weeks of his career.
It is. I mean, it's mentally exhausting, physically too. You got to make sure you hydrated. You got to make sure that your muscle fibers are loose and stretched out too. Like that's just the performance side of it. And we was talking about it the other day as it pertains to Shedeur Sanders and whoever else is only doing interviews. Like the mental gymnastics that you're going to have to go through are some of the most wild things that you can, think of. You never know what's going to come your way, what's going to be said, and how you need to react. Again, like I told you, I saw a couple of guys out with their agents and probably a representation yesterday, and there's nothing those guys can do because nobody knows the questions that's going to be asked, and not just that, and the attitude that is going to be asked too. Like some of these coaches, man, they are damn near psychiatrists with how they know how to play mind games, and they can't wait to just put you in a box and watch you crumble. So, yeah, I mean, you know how it goes. Stress kills, like in a lot of situations, and some of these guys probably have those anxiety issues after leaving those rooms.
Well, let Ramon be the lesson to all of you that these players will just become numbers this week. There are stories behind all of the numbers, both the good and the bad ones, and you can have an 11-year career despite maybe not having the numbers you wanted. And again, you still had some good ones in there too. So
that's what I was saying earlier too. When it came down to like we're speaking about Abdul Carter or guys like being too big or too small. Like at the end of the day, if you can play ball, man, it's hard finding human beings that are willing to play this sport and are capable of playing this sport at a high level like that. So if you can ball, man, they're gonna find a way to put you on the field.
Except for Isaiah Wilson.
Who?
Well, he couldn't ball.
Oh, that rapper,
Oh, yeah.
Titans legend, Isaiah Wilson. All right, well, then let's switch gears to the mental side of it, because for many of the top prospects, including we know for sure Shedeur Sanders and for sure Abdul Carter, this is an interview process and nothing more. What do you want to learn about Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward if you are in the meeting rooms today? We'll put yourself in the shoes of Mike Borgonzi, of Brian Callahan. What would you ask Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders? We'll dive into that next.
Get the Rolex of your dreams at Genesis Diamonds, y'all. Don't miss this massive 2-day luxury pre-owned Rolex event at Genesis coming up. I plan on trying to make that just so you guys know. Keisha, I know you heard that, all right? This Friday and Saturday, okay, 2 days only. Genesis is showcasing a mind-blowing collection of pre-owned Rolex timepieces featuring a stunning new selection of hard-to-find watches, too. Submariners, Daytonas, Pepsis, Bettmans, every Rolex model you can find, man, including never-worn, fresh models that people wait years for. No waiting lists and no retail games either. During this event, you can take advantage of the special pricing and up to 60 months zero-interest financing. And listen to this. With the purchase of any luxury pre-owned Rolex at this event, Genesis will give you a pair of 3-carat lab-grown diamond stud earrings of the highest quality, absolutely free. What an amazing opportunity this is. And if you've dreamed of owning a Rolex, you can't miss this. And listen, if you're already a Rolex owner, bring your Rolex to trade or meet Genesis buyers on site to receive top dollar for your Rolex. Come and see the largest selection of luxury pre-owned Rolexes in the state and take advantage of the special financing or get a pair of beautiful 3-carat lab-grown diamond stud earrings, yours free. It's 2 days only. It's this Friday and this Saturday, and only at Genesis Diamonds, your home for luxury pre-owned Rolexes. They're located in Green Hills and Cool Springs, and of course, see store for details.
RKW rolls on your Tuesday morning here in Nashville and in Indy. With Ramon Foster live from the NFL Combine, Kayla Anderson, myself, Will Bowling here in the Music City. We are putting ourselves in Mike Borgonzi and Brian Callahan's shoes. What would you ask Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, I should say, at the NFL Combine? Because Shedeur's not going to throw. At this point, it'd be surprising if Cam throws. What do you hope to learn about both of them? Guys, let's start with Cam Ward, since he is seen as the more likely number one overall quarterback. What would you ask him if you were in the interview room with him this week?
I would simply say this, guys, because it's the weakness that we all talk about all the time, is I would just simply ask him, why do you have an issue when it comes to turning the ball over? And is this something that can be fixed at the next level? Because you're going to hear how defensive he might get, or how he maybe decides to answer it in a different way of, yeah, this is something that has plagued me throughout my college career, which it has. It's been an issue. I can say watching it at Washington State and then at Miami. And those are the types of things that are weaknesses in players that you want to expose, but you also want to see how they react and if there is an opportunity of fixing it and how.
For sure. For me, with Cam, it would be, can you control your competitiveness? And I know that's probably not a bad question to ask, but that's also one of the things that's his strong attribute is his arm, his ability to be gunslinger down the field. I would ask him, can you control your competitiveness? With the idea that not every meal is a feast, and taking care of the ball is something that hasn't been prevalent in Nashville with the Titans. And that's something that has to come first. Where are you mentally on being able to just get rid of the ball and live another play? Those are the things that he has to be able to answer. Also, when it comes down to how you manage your teammates, how are you there? This team currently has, in my opinion, not a real strong offensive leader on that side of the ball. What will you do to command the locker room? How did you go about it going from Incarnate Word to Washington State to Miami? Can you really transcend a team? Those are the questions I have. I would also pit him against Shedeur. Hey, Shedeur's lived this life. He's lived this his entire life. Why would you be better at handling our situation, meaning the Titans, better than Shedeur? I think you got to get him, considering what we've seen on the internet with their well-off media snippets and everything. Why are you a better fit for us than Shedeur is? Those are the questions that I want to ask a guy like him if he's sitting one-on-one just to hear. And here's the thing about it, too. You may say, well, you're pitting them against each other. Well, he wants to be number one. Shedeur does, too. Sell me. Sell yourself to us as a squad. Those are the questions I have for him.
It's fair. I mean, surely he'll be asked about his comment saying he'll pretty much take it personally if he's not picked number one. Like, the Titans have the number one pick. So, I mean, I feel like they can ask the question, like, all right, so, like, what are you going to do if you're not number one?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it has to be that too. And also, how will you improvise with a team that doesn't have the weapons that Miami does at this time? Like, as far as the play making tight end, the wide receivers that he has. Shedeur pointed out, you had a running game. Right now, the Titans don't currently have an offensive lineman. How will you help make plays for that franchise, for this franchise, as it pertains to your arm, your mind, and your legs? Again, it can be a spicy conversation because this is where you need to see a guy like him be able to flip the switch and control himself and also show that he can also put on a suit and tie and be the CEO of your franchise, because that's essentially what he is as a quarterback, especially when you're number one overall pick. So you got to ask him those types of questions in my mind. His off-the-field issues, Kayla, I'll leave that to you. I'm not sure if he's ever had any.
Off-the-field issues. None of those.
What kind of player? What were the sentiments that you heard about him while he was at Washington State?
I shared all that.
He was really good.
Yeah.
No, I'm speaking about as far as him on campus.
Yeah, I shared all that with you in terms of what the coach who worked closely with him, his like at Washington State said about him is he is like a guy that I can read it again, but it was glowing glowing things about him. Great human, unbelievable personality, fiercely competitive, diligent in preparation, loves the kid. So I never heard one bad thing about him in terms of anything on campus. And believe me, I hear all of those things because Pullman is the town. So I've never heard any off the field issues with Cam. And I'm just being honest. If there were, I would definitely bring those to the table. So that's that. I also wanted to mention, I think it's interesting if the team like Tennessee were to ask a question like, we might bring a veteran in and we might not start you right away. What would you think about that? Because we know how competitive he is, but if that's their plan, he has to be good with that too. And reacting to that would be interesting from Cam Ward, who is so highly competitive.
Yeah, it's fair. Like he's a fascinating guy to me. Again, like I say, he seems to be very professional, and it'll really result down to how he handles managing a franchise. Because when you're number one, the expectations are just that much higher, especially if you're a top 10 pick like that too, or even just a first-round quarterback in the top 15, and he will be for sure.
For sure.
I think for me, I'm looking at Cam Ward and saying, what makes you different from Will Levis? Why aren't you Will Levis? And I'm not saying the two are the same prospects. Do not hear me when I'm saying that. But if I was in the room, that's what I would ask him, just from the perspective of, I just had a riverboat gambler quarterback who takes risks and tries to play hero ball, and it didn't work. I couldn't get it through his head. If I'm Brian Callahan speaking, I could not get him to understand how to play a game management my style of NFL professional quarterbacking. What makes you different? What makes you as a human being adaptable enough and as a quarterback adaptable enough to learn how to not do that? Because I know he's got a lot more experience than what Levis did. I know that he came from a different conference. He elevated different places. He had different coordinators. Like, a lot of these things were true of Levis as well, but he is not the same prospect as Will Levis. However, he shares one key weakness that Will Levis did coming out. He commonly tries to do too much outside of the structure of the offense. What makes him different? I want to hear from his words. What makes him different to where I can teach you structure? Right. I can teach you how to play within the framework of a system to where the arm talent actually helps me now for you, unlike it did with Will Levis, where it just hurt me because it looked really pretty when you threw the ball to the other team.
Yeah, and again, that's something that Coach Brian Callahan has stated when it comes down to the type of quarterback that he's looking for. Is a quarterback that's good mentally and that has accuracy and being able to take care of the ball. Cam has had his issues inside of the pocket. He has been characterized as a guy that utilizes arm strength well, and that is a big positive if used right. That's why I was getting to earlier when it comes down to his ability to deliver and run an offense. What are you going to do in situations where it comes to you either having to suppress yourself to just take the fourth down, punt the football away, or will you throw it away to the other teams? Those are things that have to be figured out in those meetings. I think it's very fair. To me, like I said, the 1 and 2 that he has with Shedeur, I think is something that you'll see a reaction out of, how he goes about handling it. And because I do feel like there's a me versus him in a good way. I think it's good fun banter. But having the ability to state and say privately inside of those meetings with those GMs, yeah, I'm just better than him. I would almost want to force Cam to say that just to see if he believes in himself enough.
What about Shedeur Sanders? What would you ask him? What do you want to learn about him?
I want to say the obvious thing that I think he's been around his dad his whole entire life, which is not a bad thing. I think he's taught him to be a pro. But I want to simply just ask, who are you without your dad? And what do you plan to do in terms of leading the way with yourself in terms of when you are living away from your father? Like, what are the things that you're going to do to know that you can do it on your own? And I think it's a valid question because he really hasn't had to do that away from his dad for a really long time, especially when it comes to playing the game of football. He has had that access to his dad. But when you become a pro and you're in your own city and you are the guy, how do you plan to do that?
Fair. Mine would be, what's more important to you? This football game or your ability to be a big star off the field? I think that'll be one that'll be brought up to him. When it comes, again, these meetings are to see a reaction to figure out what type of person you are. They know the friggin' football player, y'all. That's my point on like asking these personal questions is they know the football player. They want to see how you handle pressurized situations.
Right. Yeah.
A 3rd and 13. And you're down 3 points and you need 8 yards to be able to kick a field goal. How you handle those situations. I think you ask him, hey, are you releasing music during the season? What type of guy will you be off the field in the community? When it comes to, as Kayla said a second ago, what if we say family can't be inside of the building? They got to wait for you outside of the locker room. Those types of things, I think, is where Shedeur will be asked the most questions as it pertains to his family, his lifestyle, his upbringing. I think if they get an opportunity to meet him, the man, they'll have a different sentiment. Everybody I know that's been around Shedeur is just like he is a stand-up model as it pertains to him being a football player and him being a perfect gentleman when it comes about knowing how to do this business. It would almost be flagrant if a young man like Shedeur Sanders did not understand how these interviews worked and also how the NFL is. His dad has been in the NFL aura or football world since the early 90s. You know what I'm saying? So it'd almost be bad if he didn't understand those meetings. So for me, asking Shedeur football questions, I don't think it's going to play a part for him.
No.
I think the biggest thing for him is how will he uplift his teammates? And also, if you're coming to a bad team, if he dealt with bad teams going from Jackson State to Colorado, what makes you so sure that you can make the Tennessee Titans a winning organization based upon your insertion inside of the locker room? Just to hear what his answer would be.
And I'm getting like, dang, Kayla, in terms of my question, or, oh, geez, asking a grown man that question, that's the point. I mean, maybe they should have me in the room because these are the questions that really you're supposed to trigger players. This is the point of these interviews. You guys, if you think this is all football, you're dead wrong. The amount of questions that I've heard have been asked to these players, these prospects, it's insane. Like, it's personal. It gets down to, like, maybe things that people don't even know about. These are the types of questions that are honestly asked to these players, and they have to react in a way that, you know, they still are impressive enough and know that they can handle it.
Yep. I think it's a totally fair question. I mean, he's always had Dion. Shedeur has through his whole college career. I think it's fair. Ramon, how argumentative did a lot of teams get with you in your meetings? I know you've told the story about the team asking you what was it like, or why'd you get your coach fired? When Philip Fulmer got fired, obviously your senior season.
Yeah.
Like, was that the norm? Like, were most teams trying to get you mad, or was that like half of them? Like, what was the kind of the ratio of polite to kind of impolite questions?
Thank you. Buck just brought me coffee, y'all.
Oh, look at that.
Hey,
nice. I didn't know he was that thoughtful.
And he told me it was real hot too. That is, we'll not be suing Buck like they did that restaurant years ago. Hey, nice. But when I answered that question, man, I'll give you the answer I gave to him. I was just like, man, to be honest with you guys, we tried. The senior class tried to hold it together, but it was more of them than it was of us. It was like, well, what do you mean it was more of them? Well, it was more young guys there in that situation. So as far as guys being handled starting positions, or this is in the era when the recruiting and had to play 5 stars was a thing. And that's an answer I somewhat gave to him in small context. And there's always a follow-up. Well, as a leader, shouldn't you have grabbed those guys sooner? So it's just like, and you don't really have an answer for what they're asking you, but they don't want to see you overreact and get mad. As I said a second ago, those coaches inside of those team meeting rooms for those 15 minutes, they are good. And you got to think, too, it's GMs that are former lawyers that have been around the league, seen every single scenario and seen a version of you in some context over the years, too, so they know how to handle you and ask those types of questions. And for me, as far as, like, my reputation in college, it was pretty clean. So the way they were going to get to me was asking me football team-related situations. As far as when the university, when you got to Tennessee, it was good. Why didn't it stay that way after you and your class got there? Like, those are the hard-hitting questions that really hit your football integrity, hit your ability to show that you're a good teammate, or just show that, look, I'm a leader with certain type of things surrounding me as far as the types of players. It's a lot that goes into those meetings and how you answer it. And like I said, the context they took from me was if they knew they could get me triggered or engaged, they knew they'd get the best version of me. That was what I was told when I retired. Fascinating approach to how they go about it.
It's interesting.
And they have psychiatrists in those rooms, too.
Certainly. Right. Makes sense. I think from the football perspective, I want to know from Shedeur Sanders, what'd you learn about all the sacks you took?
Sure.
If Greg Cosell, and I know he said it on the install on 3HL, Tom Brady has this idea, too, that, like, quarterbacks that get sacked in college get sacked a lot in the NFL. So what makes you different, Shedeur? Why did you get sacked so many times in college, and what'd you learn from it? Why are you not going to get sacked in the NFL?
Especially coming to a team if you're the Titans. I mean, and I know he's had a conversation with the Titans at the East-West Shrine game, but in this type of situation, just reiterating the fact that this line, isn't what it needs to be yet, and this could be something to start the season. At least that's an issue.
I think the other thing, if I want to know the off-field, the mentality, and getting Shedeur Sanders a little bit mad, if that's the goal within some of this, like you guys have said, why should I draft a quarterback that lost 5 games 2 years ago in a row to finish the season?
Fair.
Like, were you in it to wear gold sunglasses in 2023, or why are you losing to all the teams you did to finish that season in a weak Pac-12?
Right. And even with Cam Ward asking him the question, why did it take you 3 tries to garnish this type of attention as a quarterback? Why did you go to Incarnate Ward? Like, why were you a 0-star? I mean, those are the types of questions that I know it could be unfair, but at the same time, you just want to see the reaction out of these guys.
Yeah, I'm also looking at we're speaking about these conversations. I think I heard Buck and Lucas speaking about it the other day, and C.J. Stroud, who also said he didn't think he was going to get drafted by the Houston Texans because Bobby Slowick really leaned in to C.J. Stroud in those pre-draft conversations. It was the quote is, and hopefully I get it right, Bobby Slowick just kind of jumped him and said, I don't give a bleep what you called at Ohio State. That's college. This is pro football. And Bobby kind of got in his face and said CJ was not one to back down. I don't know if Bobby was testing him, but that's like a small snippet of what happens in those types of meetings. And lo and behold, it was the team that ended up drafting him. CJ, I'm sure, probably showed a little bit of grit and pushback. Like, there's a look that you can have to show that, hey, I'm not just a pushover, but it gets somewhat testy. Now, it looks kind of bad on Bobby Slowick right now, considering he got let go. But these are the interactions that happen. You have, some of these people asking personal questions about guys' moms and stuff like that. Girlfriends. Mm-hmm. I'm sure Travis Hunter is going to have to answer that one. Just considering how public it was. It's different if it's a private situation. And they know most of those too. But the public stuff that goes on, these teams, these social media account workers, man, they have Instagrams, they have Twitters, they have the TikToks and everything else. So they're well informed before you even sit down.
You know how old you sound? You said they have the Twitters and they have the TikToks.
As I was
a decade.
I'm going to sip my black coffee right now and just reflect on me being 39.
Your Starbuck that you have this morning.
Yeah.
I think above anything else, the one thing that I want to know from both Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward is, are you a winner? Because neither of you really won very many huge games.
Yeah.
Like, neither of these guys are Will Howard in terms of the games they won. And wins are not the only quarterback stat, but neither of these guys were in national championship level playoff games and conference championship, massive stage, got to win this to keep the season alive games. Like, the biggest win that Shedeur Sanders had in his college career is Utah this season, maybe.
Yeah.
Like, probably not even that one, honestly. Like, we might be going back
this year.
to when he beat TCU as a junior on a team that just played in the national championship, but that TCU team ended up being bad. And then you look at Cam Ward this year at Miami, like, the biggest game he won this past season is at Louisville.
At Louisville.
At
They were
Florida
tested because they
start
dropped
the
the
season?
Syracuse, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he was great against Louisville. He's great at Florida. But, like, what makes you a winner if you never had to play in big, like, massive implication, big pressure games?
Yeah.
That's, I think, the really interesting question for both these guys. 615-737-1045 is our number. Coming up, there is a rule change proposal in the NFL. Fair or foul? An NFC team trying to ban the tush push. The NFL got a little petty yesterday. We'll talk about that next.
Are you worried because your home has been on the market for a while now and you didn't have any success getting it sold? A lot of us experience this, especially in a big city like Nashville where there's a lot going on. An expired listing can leave you frustrated, but it doesn't have to be the end of your journey. My friend Bernie Gallerani with Bernie Gallerani Real Estate has proven marketing strategies to get your property in front of the most qualified buyers to get you top dollar for your home. Bernie Gallerani has more than 200 five-star Google reviews and over $1.3 billion in properties sold. And he's going to guarantee to sell your home in 30 days or less, or he's just going to buy it from you. To get started, all you got to do is Google Bernie Gallerani Real Estate or go to BernieGallerani.com, or you could simply give him a call on his cell phone. That's 615-428-2644, 615-428-2644.
RKW on 104.5 The Zone continues on this Tuesday morning and streaming live at 104.5 The Zone TV, Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch. Ramon Foster in Indy, Kayla Anderson, myself, Will Bowling here in Nashville. Fair or foul? The Green Bay Packers suggested a rule change to ban the tush push.
I say foul.
Definitely foul.
And I call even more fouls in this play. So you want to know why? Because I feel like it's somebody else that hyped them up to actually submit this rule change, man. Here's the thing about it. If it was Green Bay don't even play them like that, man. For them to be that upset about the tush push. Like, come on, man. Like, at some point, this is where it's, in my opinion, not overly physical. You know it's going to happen. And then the thing about the quarterback sneak, everybody has been doing the quarterback sneak for ages. Why is their version different? My thing is, get you a group of guys that can do the exact same thing to you and be willing to put your quarterback in harm's way to get that play established for your team. That's not that hard. Well, it is that hard to do. You got to have that right type of players. What I'm saying is this isn't the impossible task of stopping this play, though. That sucks.
Yeah, I think it was not supposed to get out that Green Bay had an issue. That was the whole thing. Like, it
Correct.
got leaked. So I guess foul on whoever leaked it, right? But
It'd be Diana Rossini who had the report.
Yeah,
Let's go,
leave
Diana.
it to Diana, right? Leave it to Diana, who does a great job, by the way, and who's probably up there this week with The Athletic. But when it's all said and done, guys, it is interesting, though, like where this became a thing in terms of the league not ever looking at it beforehand and saying this is not allowed. Like, why did it take this long and for the Eagles to have this much success with it to now suddenly be an issue where they're going to try to maybe make it a rule that they can't do the tush push? That's the problem I have with it. If this was a problem 5 years ago when it kind of trickled onto the scene, then it should have been eliminated then. So you waited this long to do it, and now you're seeing the continued success Philadelphia has with it. It's not their fault. That's stupid if they try to make it not a thing now. Like, you should have done it a long time ago.
Well, they tried then, too. Teams, not the first time this has been a proposal. It's just not passed.
Right.
And if the proposal does proceed to a vote, there would need to be 24 votes in favor of it for any rule to be adopted.
Well, we know one person or team that's going to have in favor of it, the Packers.
Yeah, it won't
Clearly.
pass.
I don't think it
It's
should.
soft. SAWFT soft is what it is because the Eagles are just really good at it.
Yeah,
like
that's-
if you watched
people
the
are mad.
AFC Championship game between the Bills and the Chiefs, the Bills could not consistently run this play successfully, even though they did all season. The Chiefs found a way to stop it in that game. Now, they couldn't when they had the Philly offensive line and Jalen Hurts and, all those guys doing it for the Eagles. But, it's not just a cheat code play that everyone gets to run. It is a very well-built Eagles offensive line with a very athletic quarterback and a running back and some wide receivers who do a good job of executing that play. It's completely ridiculous and soft from Green Bay in every way.
And that's the thing. It's like you mentioned the quarterback sneak. We've seen that for years. And that, for some teams, is successful, too. This is just a little added, pun it if you want, a little added push to it. But in no way do I feel like it's harming anybody. It's hurting players. And if anything, do it at your own risk if you are a team that wants to do that. I just think it's the jealousy that the Eagles do it so well and they just won a Super Bowl that they're able to be that consistent on fourth downs with that.
Yeah, this to me isn't the same as what got outlawed a few years back. Or I was playing was the double A-gap push on extra points and field goals where you had a linebacker, 2 D tackles lined up over one player. And the difference in those two plays is, at least on the defensive side of things, for the defense receiving the tush push, they have an opportunity to go forward. The difference between that and the extra point and field goal is offensive linemen just used to have to take those hits, sit there, and just get double wedged by the defense. And that, to me, that is a safety hazard. Or having the long snapper, which most teams only have one long snapper, be in a position to where they also run the risk of getting injured too. So that, to me, is a structure of the team, and being in a situation where real health is a part of it, where guys get injured. I've seen guys get twisted and folded back on those double A-gap pushing on extra point and field goal. It just sucks. So this is, to me, the same as the end around, the flea flicker, all of those types of trick plays. Whenever you talk about what the tush push is, it's a weapon. Use it accordingly. And the other thing, too, is when it's coming. 3rd and short, 4th and short. More times than not is when you're going to get it.
Yeah, that's fair. I love this tweet out of at Ramon Kayla Will. We asked, what would you ask Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders if you were interviewing them in Indy? And King of Clubs on Twitter says, how will you like playing for the Giants?
That's hilarious. That's really
You're going to live in Jersey. You're going to live in the Bronx. Which borough will you live in when we trade the number 1 pick? That's the real question the Titans should be asking.
No, fascinating. No, they should ask him, does he want to stand in Gulch, Hendersonville, or Brentwood?
Where are you building your house with Aaron Rodgers down here when he comes here too?
Exactly. Or another one you can ask, too, who's the best player that you played against and why? You know what I'm saying? Like, you can ask those types of questions in those settings. There will be some football questions asked, but I'll reference real quick this C.J. Stroud one. He said he ended up going to another meeting after that and said, how did you hear anything about it? It's like, yeah, that team won't be drafting me. Mm-hmm. He said none of C.J. Stroud camp thought that, or they did not want him to go to Houston on how bad they somewhat talked to him in those meetings. Right. So just prepare yourself. But I know this. Those guys have pre-draft prep camps that they go through. So they'll be prepared as possible when it comes down to having these sit-downs, which are uber important.
Yeah, I think you were in Mobile maybe and weren't on the show when we played that audio on the show a few weeks ago.
Ugly,
super interesting on C.J. Stroud. Yeah, for sure.
Ugly.
Coming up, we'll reset the headlines of the morning. The big story of the day, Abdul Carter not working out at the Combine. We'll give you the latest on him, what his agent is saying about his health. Plus, there is one quarterback who has just told everyone that he will go through throwing at the NFL Combine. We'll tell you who that is and what we expect to see from that player coming up next.
What's going on? 8 o'clock on the dot. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone studios. I am Robert Walsh. The NFL Combine getting started today in 104.5 The Zone. Well represented. Titans Radio, Ramon Foster, Buck Rising, all down there. No on-the-field drills today, mostly team interviews as everyone's getting their bearings in Indianapolis. One man who will not be doing that is Penn State defensive end and potential number 1 overall pick, Abdul Carter, as he will not be working out at the Combine as he is recovering from a shoulder injury he suffered versus Boise State. Carter played through the injury against Notre Dame in the semifinal playoff game, but only recently was cleared to resume training. A quote from his agent: "We fully expect Abdul to be recovered in time to work out at his pro day at Penn State, and he will perform at a very high level." It's not just NFL draft moves being made at the Combine this week. As Daniel Jeremiah tweeted, "I'll be shocked if we don't see a flurry of extensions done in the next 7 to 10 days. Teams have money and space, and the free agent group is not very exciting. Good time to lock up your key young guys." So make sure you keep an eye out for those deals getting done at the Combine. For all your foundation repair and your waterproofing needs, you got to go to USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Second half of the show in hour 3, getting started on your Tuesday morning edition of RKW. 615-737-1045. Ramon Foster in Indianapolis, or as Charles Barkley says, in the Annapolis, on the commercial I referenced a couple of years ago. Kayla Anderson, myself, Will Boulding here in studio. And your comments this morning in the F&M Bank chat on Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch. That has been very lively and active this morning. We have new reporting on a quarterback who is going to throw at the NFL Combine. Quinn Ewers going to throw. You interested? You're going to make your way down there to see? Quinn Ewers is going to showcase the arm.
And why is that? He needs all the help he can get.
It's for that particular reason. Like, I still look at him as like a potential second or third round pick. That's not like there's anything to sniff at when it comes down to him keeping his value. That's my thing as far as him keeping his value. I view a guy like Quinn Ewers to where he would also do it at Texas, where his receivers are very familiar with him. But as late as he played, as much as he has under his resume, I just didn't see a case for him throwing at the Combine is what I get from it, Kayla.
Yeah, and I understand that point of view, too, because we all have talked about how things can hurt you, right? I just look at it as there is still so much uncertainty with that number 3 quarterback overall. And I know there's some that will say Jackson Dart is more of a favorite, but there are other people that say he's not. So I do think there is just such a plethora of them that are kind of all combined together right now, and separation has to come at some point. And you look at it too, Moan, if you see all these other quarterbacks that are in that big grouping throwing and then you don't throw, it does kind of look bad because you are in a different group than Shedeur, Sanders, and Cam Ward, who kind of had their own decision. If they don't want to throw, it's not going to be looked at as weird. But I think when you're trying to separate yourself from this group of quarterbacks, maybe it does if you don't throw at the Combine and these other guys do.
Well, Quinn Ewers was in that conversation. We go back about 2 years ago now. His play has dictated a lot when it comes down to where he falls as far as being an NFL draft prospect right now. So that handles itself. I just look at what teams thought of his talent initially and what Texas has done. They made it to the college football playoffs. They've had a lot of good success there, and he's played through some stuff at times and also beat the Arch Manning allegations, whatever you want to call them, right? So he checks a lot of boxes to me. I just looked at everything that he does moving forward as far as being the third, fourth, or fifth quarterback hurts him. Again, for a guy like him, I feel like the ability to body punch him in this city, in Indianapolis at the Combine, is way more higher than what Cam or what Shedeur will go through. Heck, for that matter, Jackson Dart. Because, again, Quinn has played big-time ball and won big games, too. It's just a matter of I don't know how much he gains from throwing well here. I'd much rather take – if I was him, I would have probably just thrown at Texas's pro day.
Well, I think the surprise with him throwing is due to the injury he played through during the season.
Yeah.
Matt Miller, the one who says this on Twitter and reports it 20 minutes ago, and adds, Ewers is healthy from the torn oblique he played through this season and is doing board work with Mike McCarthy and throwing with Jeff Christensen. He says, the thing about Quinn Ewers, I mean, the medical red flags are significant with him. Never had a fully healthy season in his 3 years at Texas. When he played 10 games in 2022, 12 games in 2023, and 14 games last year. That was a Texas team that played a couple of extra games, mind you, 3 of them to be specific, and obviously missed some time. So, and just the accuracy. It's a concern for Ewers at this point in the process.
He also just doesn't pop off the tape to me at times. So I know he's made some plays and stuff like that. He and Cam Ward, to me, I feel like have the same throwing motion where it comes from the hip.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure how strong Quinn Ewers' arm is for him to be able to continually do that. Again, efficiency is what matters when it comes down to these quarterbacks, I feel, more than anything. The cannon of an arm, I don't think we're having that big of a conversation surrounding that talk. It's a matter of can they minimize their deficiencies, meaning mistakes and interceptions, and what kind of personalities they are, too. And I would even throw Quinn Ewers in that, too. Texas players sometimes have a reputation, just like a lot of other universities. You get a player from Miami back in the day or Ohio State, they have the reputation. Penn State players do too. It's Alabama, all of them. Can he separate himself from the state of Texas if he's sent to New York or New England, wherever the heck he gets drafted to be his own item too? So I would ask similar questions to him as I would to a guy like Shedeur.
Yeah, and I was just reading, because Tom Pelissaro came out with that report, that Cam Ward's still mulling the whether he's going to throw or not, and then Quinn Ewers is, and Ian Rappaport actually retweeted it and said, Quinn Ewers poised to make a push this week, and that's kind of what I was alluding to. I think he sees his opportunity to maybe separate a little bit, and he clearly has confidence in himself, and he's healed up enough from that injury. Maybe he's worked at some of those things. We talked about his lower body mechanics. Yeah. They haven't been great if you look at the film. I know Greg Cosell has gone deep into that too. So maybe he just feels confident that he can do this week. I mean, I'm here for the show, guys.
Yeah, and for him, like I said, he's pretty much showing you that he's worked out and he is where you need him to be. It's optics for me for a guy like Quinn Ewers. I'm not sure if they're going to have him doing the side arm, Zach Wilson throw down the field. I wish we'll just punt that one into the sun. It ain't many times that anybody can effectively pull off that Aaron Rodgers roll left, throw right across your body stuff. So I'll be glad whenever we eliminate that one, because all it did was hype us up to believe Zach Wilson was going to be more than what he was, and it turned out to be a dud with the Jets, man.
Well, we ask a lot of players to run 40 yards at a dead sprint that we don't ask them to do a lot during NFL football games as well.
But for the ones that need those times and the baselines they have to see.
Of course.
And as used, my point is the quarterbacking situation. That's actually like bad technique, and there ain't many players that can make that throw either.
Right.
And then all that happens for us is we go woo and ah, and then we got to talk about quarterbacks that end up being trash.
Look, it's February. We got to fill this time with something. We got to ooh and ah on something.
I am a little Debbie Downer about that throw right there. Right. It's all good.
How far can you throw an orange? Is the real question.
Me right now, I'm 20 yards.
Okay.
No,
So,
I'm getting 70.
This morning, Mel Kiper has dropped his new mock draft at ESPN.com, and he has the Titans taking a player who will not participate at the NFL Combine this week, Abdul Carter. This is interesting for Mel Kiper, who says the quarterback question looms large here at number 1. Could Tennessee trade the pick to a QB-needy team looking to land Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders? Sure. In fact, Mike Berganzi has even suggested the Titans will listen to offers. Could Tennessee also choose to take one of those passers itself here to replace Will Levis? Of course, but there are other ways to attack the position. Aaron Rodgers, Mel Kiper says, and I already said it's too early to start projecting trades. He adds the Titans would love having Carter, who isn't working out this week. He creates so much pressure off the edge with burst and instincts to get home for sacks. and all of these things. He has got the Browns taking Cam Ward at 2.
We've started to see more of that.
The Titans passing on quarterback. How significant, guys, do you think that is that Mel Kiper is starting to pivot towards Abdul Carter for the Titans?
I think it's interesting, but more so, I think it's easier to put that out there right now based on they haven't spoke to Cam Ward. There's clearly a need for that edge position, and I think there is still uncertainty out of the Titans camp on whether they want to really roll the dice on one of these quarterbacks, considering, they don't know if that quarterback can succeed right away and be a starter. And if you're drafting them number 1 overall, you're in a way expected to start them. I mean, they could sit for a minute, but I think the expectations are to start that quarterback. And I just think people realizing they don't have the pieces around it. What I am also interested is Cam Ward continuing to, I'm seeing more mocks with him to the Cleveland Browns. And I think this one, Mel Kiper has Shedeur Sanders going 7th to the Jets, I believe, if I'm correct on that. And so this is a little bit different from what we've been hearing in the past few weeks, guys.
To me, it's smart, to be honest with you. When you look at a lot of people that have ranked this draft class, and then specifically this quarterback class also, I think it was Matt Miller that had his recent article. It had his top 12 players that had a first-round grade, and neither one of those 12 was a quarterback. So when you talk about if Mel Kiper is that close to the team and has talked to somebody in the front office to say, what are you guys thinking? It might just come down to value. Again, to me, this is my stance earlier, is the safest pick is Abdul Carter if the Titans are going to stick and pick. Because here's the thing, though, too. In a sense, you still got to go through free agency. That's going to really give us our answers. And from that point right there, you also – and they've said this, and we're going to actually speak with Mike Borgonzi and Brian Callahan here soon with Titans Radio, but they've said from the get-go they're going to stick to their plan. They're not going to overexert themselves as it pertains to just getting the hot item. They're going to do what's best for the team. And if that's their plan and they all are aligned with one another, with the GM, assistant GM, director of player personnel, and head coach, then that to me seems very realistic to pass on the quarterback and find your guy of the future later. It's a slow grind the way this thing's going to go. Again, we've seen teams build up their roster super fast, and then they get trashed also super fast too.
Yeah. I think it's meaningful that the day that the NFL Combine really starts to ramp up, that Mel Kiper has changed his pick for the Titans from Cam Ward to Abdul Carter. I don't think that's just something that he is changing on his own. I think that's really interesting as this process begins.
Well, you know this too, man. I ran into Pelissero last night too, and it was later in the evening, and a lot of these folks are still working late at night. They are recording. They're talking to coaches, so there's no telling if Mel Kiper has spoken to someone to actually get that type of intel before he dropped it. Right. So could be possible.
Interesting. Well, Ramon, we're going to let you go for a little bit. You go talk to people and do your thing. Obviously, you don't need us to tell you what to do. You're pushing it on your own.
Do your thing.
I'm not the one giving you orders. You do just fine on your own. But you enjoy all those things. We'll talk with Austin Price of VolQuest on 3 here on RKW coming up next.
No doubt.
Do you want to look and feel better about yourself here in 2025? You can have your hair fuller and thicker. And really, all you got to go and check out is my friends at We Grow Hair. Hey, it's Kayla Anderson, and I grew my hair back. It has been the biggest confidence booster ever. You can do that too. All you got to do is give them a call right now, 615-376-6010. We Grow Hair right here in Nashville has been growing hair back for almost 30 years. They've got proven solutions that work, starting with their ARTIS robotic FUE procedure and multi-unit hair grafting hair transplants. That's going to give you 2 times more hair in one procedure. But if you're just looking to grow back some of that hair over time, I've been doing for the past 9 months their 45-minute laser and PRP treatments. It's for men and women, and it will get you results in just a couple of months. Backed by the only company I trust to help my thinning hair, it is We Grow Hair, and you can call them right now, 615-376-6010. Call them for a free consultation at 615-376-6010 or go to wegrowhair.com.
to Glass Breaks. We talk Vols on RKW. Tuesdays at 8:20 is when we chat with VolQuest's Austin Price, the authority on Tennessee athletics coverage in Knoxville and Nashville, around the world. VolQuest.com. Kayla Anderson and Will Bowling with you in studio here in Nashville as we are joined now by Austin. What's up, Austin? How are you?
I'm boycotting if Ramon's not on this.
Oh, I know. He's in Indy. He is talking to, I believe, either the Titans GM or head coach right now in a conversation we will hear later. But I can pass along you're doing this interview under protest if you would like, Austin.
I mean, I probably would have signed up if you could have got Sammy Kincaid to fill in for him, but, we'll make it work, just the three of us.
We will make it work. Absolutely, we will. Austin, Tennessee and Nebraska are not going to make it work to play a football game because Nebraska wanted out. Seamless transition. How did this process start, and how frustrated do you believe Tennessee is with the way all of this went that now leaves them with an opening on the football schedule?
Very frustrated. To do it at this time, I think just puts Tennessee in a tough spot because, at the end of the day, Danny's heard from the fans. Danny listens to the fans. Danny doesn't want to do another neutral site game, but I'm not sure he can find a home and home that's going to be, doable. And so, because you're not only looking for an opponent that has an opening, but then you're looking for an opponent that has the same week that you need. It's like, the high school, there's several high school teams that maybe need a game or two left on their schedule, but if you need week 6 and everybody else has got week 4, it doesn't do you any good. So you got to find somebody that matches up with what you're looking for. I get the frustration. I think you got to figure out ways to maybe make this work. Maybe it's you find a game in 26 and then you find a game in home and home in 27 and 28, and you get out of the West Virginia neutral site game in 28 if you're Tennessee. I think fans want destinations. Fans want they just want fun experiences, and I don't think going to Charlotte, Atlanta, Nashville, those places they've all been to the last several years, and I think it just makes it a lot more fun for fans if you're going and doing a home and home with UCLA or Oregon or Wisconsin or Boston College or whoever, right? Just somebody that Tennessee's not played in a while.
VolQuest Austin Price with us. I know a lot of fans, Austin, have taken to social media like, what about Memphis? What about some of these just interesting regional matchups? Obviously, the SEC has the rule. They've got to add a Power 4 team. Part of the process and part of the mandate and in football is that you got to play a power conference team every single season. Is there any opportunity, Austin? I know the other one I'm sure you've seen a ton is Notre Dame. Is that at all an option, you think, for Tennessee at this point to be able to revive an old school rivalry where Tennessee fans have some good memories and a miracle against Notre Dame?
Sure. I mean, obviously Tennessee played up there a handful of times. You're referencing the Miracle of South Bend in 91, but Tennessee went up there in 01. Mm-hmm. They lost up there in 2005. And, anything's on the table. If Danny can figure out a way to do a home and home and not have to do a neutral site game, he's going to figure it out. Because, again, he's heard from the fans. He doesn't want to be known as Mr. Neutral Site. And so I think everything is on the table at this point.
Austin Price with us now here on RKW. When it comes to, before we pivot to some basketball talk, but when it comes to Faison Brandon, what is maybe the things you're hearing about him, the interest still with the Vols?
Super locked in with Tennessee. Several schools have made a run at him. They've kind of come up empty, and so he'll be back on campus in early March. He's going to come in, I think, March 8th, with Tristan Keys, the Mississippi wide receiver that he's really close to, and go from there. But, I mean, he's super locked in with Tennessee at this point, and, they've done a really nice job of making him, a priority for a long, long time, which is why he committed back, last July, August time frame.
I'm curious, too, when it comes to Josh Heupel and the way that he is recruiting these quarterbacks now. And it does kind of look at Nico Iamaleava and say, well, we still got to see what you do here to set the tone of, come to Tennessee and have a prosperous career here. But is that maybe what he's looking to do, is just kind of stacking up as much as he can and just letting the competition be there when it needs to be?
Yeah, I mean, in theory, right, Nico will play this coming year and then be off to the NFL. And then you've got a wide-open competition with Jake Merklinger, with George McIntyre, with Faison Brandon set up for next spring. And, Tennessee's not had a full-blown quarterback competition in a long, long time, it doesn't feel like. And, I think the prospects of that are pretty neat. So if you're Merklinger, you'd be on campus for 2 years. George would be on campus for 1 year, and then Faison would have to hit the ground running. But, yeah, I think, you stack them up and, let the best man win. I don't think Tennessee's quarterback room has been super deep the last couple of years, and so it can get back to that point, just by continuing to stack really good quarterbacks.
And Austin, to that same point as well, just moving forward to this season, how big of a battle do you see between Jake Merklinger and George McIntyre for that backup spot? And how comfortable do you think Tennessee feels moving forward into 2025 if the worst-case scenario happens again like it did last season in a pinch against Mississippi State and Tennessee has to go to another quarterback?
Well, I think there was a real comfort level last year with Gaston Moore, right? Just because his longevity in the system and, his knowledge of the system. And honestly, just kind of just how he, just kind of had a certain moxie about him.
Right.
Like he carried himself a certain way. And I think for him, there was a comfort level with the staff. Now you've got, Merklinger going into year 2, George in year 1. I think it's a deeper room, a more talented room. Do they have as much faith in those two kids as they did Gaston Moore? I guess, this spring will go a long way to determining that, but I really think Tennessee feels like their quarterback room's in a better spot heading into this year than it's been in probably since, I would go the Hendon Joe, Taven Jackson year. When it was Joe and Nico and Gaston Moore, just from a pure talent standpoint, they were probably a little deeper back in 22 than they were 23. They certainly weren't very deep in 24, and I think they'll be much deeper in 25.
VolQuest Sauce Price with us this morning on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. Austin, switching gears to the hardwood. Tennessee goes to College Station, picks up a big win, obviously on the road tonight in Baton Rouge. What was most significant about the way the Vols won against the Aggies on Saturday for you?
Just that they made shots. They gutted out a win. That first half had a chance to really unravel, and it didn't. And Chaz Lanier, obviously was a big part of that. But in the second half, obviously you had, players, step up, Zakai, Jordan Gainey. They went with that small lineup that last 7 or 8 minutes, and it really paid off. And Texas A&M has been a tough place to play for them the last several trips down there. And I did think going in that game being at noon, 11 a.m. local, was a much better option for Tennessee than 7 o'clock, in the evening. And so I thought, that worked out well. But, Texas A&M's traditionally a team that doesn't shoot the three very well. They shot it better Saturday. They don't shoot free throws very well. They were unbelievable from the foul line Saturday. And, so I just was impressed with just how they went on the road, found a way to gut out a win. Now they got to do that tonight, 9 o'clock, late tip, Baton Rouge. This is another big game because if you win this one, you come home for Alabama. And at that point, you've got a real chance to run the table down the stretch here. You got some tough games left, obviously, Alabama this weekend and then at Ole Miss mid-game next week. But, they've got a shot here to potentially play themselves into a number 1 seed if they can do the right things down the stretch.
Austin Price joining us this morning on RKW. You can check out his great work on VolQuest. And that leads me to my next question, Austin. When you look at the remaining schedule for Tennessee, and maybe even comparing that to Florida, who's right above them in the rankings and currently is predicted to have a 1 seed. How realistic is that shot? Could they not even have to win out maybe if Florida falters down the stretch here? Or Alabama?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's possible. But I think the best option for Tennessee is obviously to win out. You know, and you know, Alabama's the team I think you're trying to catch at this point more so than Florida. Because you only play once. If you play Florida twice, they crush you in Gainesville and you crush them in Knoxville. Whereas if you don't play Alabama once, then you have the head-to-head of playing them and winning that game. You know, so I think it's possible, but I think the best avenue is just to continue to play your best basketball. And realistically, 1 seed, 2 seed, I don't think that really matters because, I mean, you're just going to be flipping with the team. You know, if you're the 1, you know, you're going to have the really strong 2. If you're the 2, you're going to be in there with the weaker 1. I think it's all about matchups in March. And, I mean, last year, I mean, if Tennessee is the 2, or if Tennessee's the 2 seed in any other region besides Purdue or UConn, they're probably going to the Final Four. But because they were in there with Purdue, bad matchup, got, you know, Zach Edey, getting away with all kinds of stuff, it just was never going to work out.
VolQuest Austin Price with us this morning on Ramon, Kalen, Will. Austin, I loved, obviously, the 8 threes from Chaz Lanier on Saturday, but I almost felt like his left-handed dunk and driving and showing a little bit more to his game and to his bag was the most significant part of his performance, specifically on Saturday. Does it feel like around that program that this is now the version of Chaz Lanier we're going to get moving forward? Because he was well over his averages on the road in the SEC. Do you get the sense that he's turned a corner and Tennessee is going to get the best version of him down the stretch in March?
Well, you certainly hope so. I think you still need to see more consistency to know for sure. But either way, anytime Chaz Lanier, laces them up, he's capable of doing what he did Saturday. And I think, if Tennessee can get similar production, it doesn't have to be 8 threes, but if he's making 4 to 5, I think it certainly gives them a real shot against anybody, especially if Jordan Gainey continues to play well, Zeke continues to shoot the ball well, they can keep certain players like Eagle out of foul trouble. It alters Tennessee's ability because the defense is always going to be there.
And Austin, I'll ask you this because I love always getting the chat involved when they have a question, but we were just talking about Jordan Gainey, and obviously came off the bench for 14 points in this last game. And Dustin said, why doesn't Gainey start over Jemai Meshack? And I think we heard pretty clear why that was from their assistant coach recently.
Yeah, I think too. Like you want that spark coming off the bench and scoring. If you're struggling to score the basketball, and you bring in the lesser offensive threat off the bench, then the chances of getting that spark are not as good. I think Gainey's good coming off the bench. I think he's very comfortable coming off the bench, and I mean it's not he plays starter minutes. When it comes to the actual rotation, so. I think that's kind of the line of thinking there. But either way, I mean, they all have their role. And, again, it's about matchups. I will beat that drum. March is all about matchups. Tennessee may get one that's very favorable. Tennessee may get one that's not favorable. And then you've got to find a way to win with, maybe not your A game.
Austin, on the way out on the NFL Combine front, I think it's interesting the running back class and where Dylan Sampson fits into a really strong group of backs this year in the NFL draft. Anyone who's talked to him, and I know you can vouch for this as well, will know he will interview about as well as any player, running back or any position, up there in Indianapolis as he talks to teams. What do you make of his draft stock, and where will he bring the most value to an NFL team in the future, in your opinion?
Repeat. You broke up. Who? Just tell me the name.
Yeah, Dylan Sampson. Just what do you make of his draft stock?
Well, it's one that's intriguing. Dylan's going to interview extremely well. Kid's super smart, fantastic leader. I think it just boils down to, how do they see him fitting in? Size-wise, he's not the biggest guy, but, his game translates. And, obviously, I think his ability to catch the ball in the backfield was not something that was showcased a lot at Tennessee. I think it will be at the next level. And so I think if he's able to perform well when it comes to the physical stuff, speed, quickness, agility, that type of stuff, I think he'll continue to rise up because I think he's going to interview fantastic.
He is Austin Price, VolQuest, and On 3 here Tuesdays at 8:20 on the show at Austin Priceless, where you follow him on social media. Austin, thank you, sir. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Austin.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Austin Price, talking Tennessee hoops, basketball, and a little bit of football recruiting there as well. Nothing gets the VolQuest boards going like a quarterback battle, which we may be a couple years away from. That's for Tennessee.
And that was interesting, too, to hear. I'm glad we kind of talked to him a little bit more about that quarterback battle because, like Austin said, we haven't really seen that type of battle for a while in Tennessee. It's kind of like next man up. He's kind of the guy, whether that be Hendon Hooker or Joe Milton or now Nico Iamaleava. But if Nico does move on after this season and enters in the NFL draft, it will be interesting to see maybe a true quarterback battle because of the stars that they're able to kind of get here now in Tennessee.
It is really interesting. And I think Nico's NFL draft stock specifically is fascinating, because he has got as much arm talent as any Heupel scheme, Heupel system quarterback ever. Mm-hmm. Like, you go through the years of guys that have run that system, which is a red flag to NFL teams, and it's really interesting just how none of those guys have really made it. Like, even just in the Art Briles scheme, there are not a lot of quarterbacks that run the tempo, spread out, wide splits, deep choice offense and translate to the NFL. Well, Nico has athleticism, processing ability that needs to be honed in on, but has the arm talent that not a lot of those quarterbacks have had. So I'm really interested to see what his year looks like from the NFL perspective. And I don't like evaluating college players while they're still in college just based on what the NFL thinks. But in terms of what it means for Tennessee's program moving forward, if Tennessee was a Georgia-level system, and Nico puts up a lot of numbers this year, maybe he is more easily transferable to the NFL. If he sets the world on fire this year, but is still in this system, does he stay for 2026 and 2027? Is he just there for 2 more years? Like, what does that mean for Faison Brandon? I think it's all really interesting musical chairs that Tennessee is going to have to figure out.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, too, just the number of guys they have in that room currently, and if Nico does move on, do you feel like if you are a Faison Brandon or whatever, that you want to stay? Because that's part of it, too. If you feel like it's too crowded, some of these guys are possibly going to leave. So how do you manage that as well when you're Heupel? So, yeah, it's curious. I'm just excited to see what Nico does first and foremost this year. But it is interesting moving forward how they handle that.
Chance for you to react. Haven't gotten many calls in here this morning. You can take it there at 615-737-1045. React to any of the discussions we have had so far this morning. We'll hit more headlines from Indianapolis when we come back as we wrap up Hour 3 after this.
It's Ramon Foster for Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Y'all, they have been in business, man, since 1990. Even cooler than that is, they are family-owned and operated. Jimmy Hiller, yes, familiar with the last name. Well, he was recently named amongst the most admired CEOs, and it's because of the way he truly cares for his team and his clients. Hiller takes care of the customer on every job, every time, and they stand by the work so much that 100% satisfaction is what they believe in. And their slogan is, happy you'll be or the service is free. If a customer isn't pleased with the work performed, they will make it right, all right? And most importantly, they send their professional, experienced, trustworthy technicians into your home, and they leave it cleaner and better than they found it. Best part about all of this is, of course, what you watching your pockets is this. Hiller offers true transparency. What this means is if Hiller will line item every part of the job up front so the homeowners can can easily understand what they're paying for and why. Look, if you need something done around your house right now, whether it be plumbing, heating, cooling, or electrical, reach out to the folks that I trust at happyhiller.com.
Did you know you're overpaying for your health and wellness products?
With over 20 company-owned brands offering its members vitamins, supplements, wellness, and skincare products, you're able to save up to 70% off retail.
Members Nutrition can't change your life, but we can change the way you live.
RKW on 104.5. The Zone continues here in Hour 3. We'll catch you up on everything you missed if you have been sleeping in this morning. Coming up at 9 o'clock, as we typically do, 615-737-1045. The number if you have got thoughts on any of our discussions so far this morning about Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, and what you want to hear. Mike Borgonzi and Brian Callahan are scheduled to speak with the media coming up within a half hour at the NFL Combine. And we will do our best to bring you those discussions with reporters as they happen. Coming up at 9:15 and at 9:30 for Borgonzi and Callahan. Coming up today on the Buck Rising Show, you can hear exclusive one-on-one sit-downs with both as well. So 10:30 for Mike Borgonzi, noon when you can hear Brian Callahan on the Buck Rising Show this morning from Indianapolis. So excited for that. Should be good.
Absolutely.
One report coming from Ian Rappaport of NFL Media says the Commanders are open for business when it comes to their star defensive lineman, Jonathan Allen. Entering the last year of his contract, set to earn a base salary of $15.5 million. And they are shopping him, which is interesting. It is still weird to me thinking of the Commanders as a contender. Like we see these reports all the time of like, oh, the Commanders are shopping a player. Typically that means, oh, the Commanders are so bad a player wants out.
Sure.
Obviously not the case anymore, but Jonathan Allen's still someone who appears to be on his way out.
Yeah, and when you think about anything in terms of the defensive line, you do maybe say, hey, could the Titans be interested in something like this too, right? Just for the fact that this is a guy who's a two-time Pro Bowler. Now, he has a cap hit, it looks like, about $22.3 million. So Washington, in general, would save about $16.3. So it's not totally out of the realm that they're, why they're letting him kind of shop around. But that's the thing we've got to start to realize here now that we're going to hear from Mike Borgonzi and Brian Callahan, but mostly the general manager now, is what type of business are you going to start possibly doing in free agency, especially since you've got certain needs that you're going to have to address in the draft. And you really can't address those until you solidify what moves you're making in free agency, whether that be on the defensive line. Do you keep somebody, like we mentioned yesterday, an interior guy like Sebastian Joseph Day? Do you go out and possibly sign somebody else who can beef up that in another way, but you're going to pay more money to? So there's a lot of decisions that will be made starting this week at the Combine. But yeah, Commanders in general, like knowing that they went from one of the worst teams and in terms of really management too, and reset everything in almost a year, it's hard to believe that happened. Yeah. But it also gives you a little bit of hope that maybe that can happen for the Titans. Not that drastic, but it's not like you don't have to take 3-4 years to get to that spot.
Sure. There is another quarterback who is going to be available in free agency. It appears now officially. As Cowboys Chief Operating Officer Stephen Jones told the Dallas Morning News that Trey Lance is going to be looking at something different. He says in an interview, we took a shot at Trey and wanted to do that. We think the world of Trey, but us having Dak signed up for the long term, I think he's probably going to be looking for something different. Of course, in 2023, the Cowboys traded a fourth-round pick for the former 49ers first-round pick and Trey Lance. Mm-hmm. Didn't play at all that year, and then played in some garbage time reps late in the 2024 season and started the final game of the season after the Cowboys were eliminated from playoff contention. You have any interest in Trey Lance here in Nashville?
If you want a project, and look, I'll say this, Trey Lance has had a weird career. And I know that the Niners, in a way, just decided, you know what, this is going to be the guy. It kind of, I believe, unfolded more last minute that they were going to put all their chips into Trey Lance's, bowl there. But it did not work out there. The Dallas Cowboys might have thought, hey, we could maybe groom him to be somebody who will take over for Dak. They clearly didn't believe in him enough. He's only played in 12 games in his entire NFL career. Number-wise, he's thrown for just over 1,000 yards, 5 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. But, we don't really know who Trey Lance is as a quarterback. And if you are a guy like Brian Callahan, will the words keep on like echoing in my mind when he said, I even want to develop a young backup quarterback. Like, that's how much he likes to develop quarterbacks. It's not like something where I wouldn't be completely surprised if you brought him on as a guy during camp just to compete. But I just don't know who wants to take a chance on Trey Lance when he hasn't showed you anything. And everywhere he goes, they pass on him. They pass him over to somebody else.
It is interesting. Of course, the number 3 overall pick in the 2021 NFL draft out of North Dakota State. Trey Lance just hardly played any football.
No.
Like, to me, he's almost the type of quarterback that would benefit from a season in the UFL. Mm-hmm. Like, this is where I saw somebody recommend this on Twitter the other day. Like, it's not going to happen, but those spring developmental leagues should be for backup quarterbacks and fringe, like, practice squad guys, not just the bottom of practice squads. Like, imagine how much Malik Willis would have been helped by just playing more football and playing more within that realm of like bottom of roster guys. Like, Trey Lance just needs to play real American rules tackle football. He's 25 years old next season. Like, that is the crazy thing. We talk about Tyler Shuck out of Louisville, and we talk about some of these quarterback prospects that are still benefiting from the COVID year. Trey Lance is younger than so many of those guys. Mm-hmm. Like, Trey Lance is still 24 today. Like, he turns 25 on May 9th. I'm not saying he's any kind of legitimate option for the Titans to put in there to play, but if you were looking for a project and you were looking for a guy with traits and with athletic ability and with a lot of ceiling, I mean, he's still going to be an option for somebody. Someone will take a chance on him in the capacity of, let's put you on the practice squad and see what you can do. I mean, the Cowboys traded a 4th-round pick for him just 2 years ago.
And it is
still crazy to me.
It is we speak about this a lot. Ramon spoke about this. He's played in the league. He did for 11 years there is still a lot of we can fix you in this league. Or
very much so.
If you can't fix them, well, we're going to fix them. And I think if anything, it always comes with a quarterback. I mean, that's the one position that they're going to get second, third, fourth chances because there's always an organization or a coach that says, I can fix this guy. And you're right, Will. I thought your point about the UFL is great. Is get him maybe just 1 year where he can play like some games where he can be the guy for the team and learn how to make decisions on a dime and learn how to just get out there and play some games and throwing to different wide receivers. I just think the lack of being able to play has hurt him in every situation he's gone to.
So UFL quarterbacks for this upcoming season, you have the likes of Jarrett Garantano and Quentin Dormady, both UFL quarterbacks. LSU legend Danny Etling. You have got Anthony Brown, Matt Corral, Jordan Ta'amu, Spencer Sanders. Like, you just have a who's who of former SEC quarterbacks that have been around training camp teams, around practice squad teams. I would love it if legitimate backup QBs who are young developmental quarterbacks could just be those guys. Mm-hmm. It would make a ton of sense.
It's just the money thing, right? I mean, well,
it's injury too. Like, if you have a legitimate backup QB job, you could lose that job for the foreseeable future by risking it. Like, I understand why it doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. I would love it if it could happen for a guy like Trey Lance who just needs to play more football because he hardly has.
Right.
615-737-1045. We'll catch up on your phone calls. Andrew and Cousin P are on deck. We'll get to you guys coming up. We'll catch you up on headlines you may have missed so far this morning. Coming up next.
What's going on? 9:01. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone studios. I am Robert Walsh. The NFL Combine getting started today in 104.5 The Zone. Well represented. Titans Radio, Ramon Foster, Buck Rising, all in Indianapolis. No on-the-field drills today. Mostly team interviews as everyone gathers their bearings. One man who will not be doing so, working out, that is Penn State defensive end and potential number 1 overall pick, Abdul Carter, will not work out at the Combine because he has not fully recovered from the shoulder injury he suffered against Boise State. Cam played through that injury against Notre Dame in the semifinals game, but only recently was cleared to resume training. Quote from his agent: "We fully expect Abdul to be recovered in time to work at his pro day at Penn State, and he will perform at a very high level." The big news this morning is that the Commanders have granted permission to Pro Bowl defensive tackle Jonathan Allen to seek a trade. He is in the final year of his deal with a $21 million cap hit. He did suffer a pec injury last year in October that ended his season. For all your foundation repair and your waterproofing needs, you got to go to USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
RKW on 104.5 The Zone rolls into the fourth and final hour on your Tuesday morning. Ramon Foster in Indianapolis with Titans Radio. We will catch up with him from Indy again tomorrow. Kayla Anderson, myself, Will Bowling here in studio. Robert Walsh at the controls, 615-737-1045, the number. Coming up in just about 10 minutes, you're going to hear from Mike Borgonzi and Brian Callahan from Indianapolis. And we're going to bring you those comments live from Indy here, barring any major changes at the NFL Combine. Looking forward to hearing from the GM, from the head coach, where, Kayla, the big story of the morning is no Abdul Carter. Not expected to go through drills and continues to work his way back from a shoulder injury he had in the college football playoff. I don't think anyone on this show thinks it's a very big deal.
No, just like we mentioned with Shedeur Sanders yesterday, deciding not to throw. I don't really think this is a big deal either. And again, he is the best edge prospect, in my opinion, and by a lot of other opinions who are smarter than me that are analysts. He's the best edge in terms of this year's draft. I think he's probably been the safe, but yet pick that you can't pass up on if you're the Titans, if you don't want to go that quarterback route and you want to continue to shore up this defense. So it's not very discouraging. I know people are a little freaked out about the shoulder injury, which he is still nursing a bit from this past season, which, by the way, he played through the shoulder injury towards the end of the year. But his agent, Drew Rosenhaus, also made it clear that he is going to be ready to go come pro day, which most of those come sometime in March, early April.
Yeah, if he's full go at pro day and doing all the things there, then I'm
not concerned.
There's nothing really to be concerned about. March 28th, the exact date of Penn State's pro day. So an extra month, coming back from the shoulder injury. Again, a guy who did not miss a game in college. Abdul Carter, who was banged up against Boise State. And even with the shoulder injury, had a sack against Notre Dame, a very good offensive line, was a game wrecker against the Irish. And if you watch the film of that game, he does not look like a guy who was significantly hampered by a shoulder injury. The guy was a game wrecker, even with it. So if you're playing through something like that, it does not worry me if you are hurt.
I do expect, though, Will, because the Titans will be talking to him, most likely, at the Combine. So I would be interested to see if anything comes out of that. Again, we don't hear all the things that go on inside that room, but there are a lot of reports that usually trickle out of this week. So it will be interesting to see what exactly comes from that meeting.
Andrew in Portland, first up to start hour 4 on the phone, 615-737-1045. What's up, Andrew?
Good morning, lady. Good morning, gentleman.
Hello.
So here's the thing. I need to remind Titans fans, because I see a lot of this nonsense about drafting the quarterback. And if you think he's the guy, obviously take him. But in 2015, the Titans and the Bucks had the top 2 picks because they were 2 of the worst teams in the league. The Titans took Mariota. And guess what happened? The very next year, we had the number 1 overall pick. We traded it to the Rams. We got a haul for it. It's just going to show that even a Heisman-winning quarterback drafted to a bad football team is not going to change the outcome of the overall team, right? It may lift it a little bit, but you've got to have a team to support these quarterbacks. There's not Brady's and Mahomes growing on trees. So
right.
I just personally think that we have this opportunity to take the number 1 overall pick. This is a deep draft. I see no reason why if somebody calls and offers you a good deal that you don't trade back. I just don't like the idea of forcing a quarterback onto a bad football team. So that's all I got. Looking forward to seeing what happens down there, guys. See ya.
Thank you, Andrew.
And Cousin P, sorry, I just called you Cousin P. Andrew, to your thought, too, on that, remember when Mariota was here, too, and brought to this team, I mean, he was getting beat the hell up.
He wasn't healthy.
That was
12 games that season.
And that was an issue, too, because they weren't fixing the offensive line.
Right.
And it's not like this offensive line is fixed yet. That's still an issue.
He got sacked 38 times in 12 games as a rookie, Marcus Mariota, who set the world on fire on his debut against Jameis Winston and the Bucs in 2015. But he only played 12 games that season because they couldn't protect him.
Mm-hmm.
Could not protect him. He also couldn't protect himself, really, his whole career. But that was the first of many seasons, meaning all of them, where Marcus Mariota was hurt, because Marcus has never had a season with 16 starts in his NFL career.
Yeah.
From 2015 to 2024. So
Heisman winner or not.
That's right. That is right. Cousin P is
There's
next
Cousin P.
on the phones. What's up, Cousin P?
All right, I'm here now. So I believe the last caller mentioned about Marcus Mariota, and then you guys were talking about how, the world was set on fire for that first game. So when I saw Will Levis have his first game, I guess you can call it post-traumatic Titan syndrome. I sat back on that game because of what Marcus Mariota did. That scared me, and obviously for good reason, right? We see where we are with that. But to your point about Abdul Carter not competing or not performing at the draft, for me, as a casual fan, I'm not an expert. You guys study film, and you guys are experts at your job. But as a casual fan, it does bother me a little bit. I'm not a Penn State fan. I have not been watching Abdul Carter play. I saw the playoff game, but that was my first experience and my exposure to Abdul Carter. So for me, getting a chance to watch the draft, I'm sorry, you know what I mean? For me to get to watch the combine.
The combine, yeah.
Yes, the combine. That is my chance to really sit down and evaluate him. So I am a little disappointed. I'm not necessarily worried about the injury, more so than me being disappointed to not actually get to see a guy that, we can potentially draft. So, that's my stance on that. And then finally, you were always talking about, possible young quarterbacks getting a chance like Trey Lance. My thing is this, guys. Why, the HE double hockey stick not?
Yeah.
We can't get any worse. And Kayla, I know you always say, things can get worse. Right.
It can always get worse.
Things can get worse. But we got the number 1 overall pick. So right now where we sit, things cannot get any worse than where we are. I say, give him a chance. Hell, bring back Will Levis. I mean, give him another chance. We're not gonna be good, guys, next year. We're multiple picks away from being where we need to be. It's a rebuild. So I'm good with either or of those things. I say we don't draft a quarterback this year. There's no point in doing so, especially if we're not sold on anybody. So I'll hang up, guys. Thanks for the opportunity there.
Thank you, Cousin B. Appreciate the call. I mean, it can always get worse. You can go 0-17 and get your coach fired. I mean,
the line could regress again because I feel like the line's just not ever been improving. I know it has a little bit.
We watched Dennis Daly, Andre Dillard, and Nicholas Petit-Frere all look like the same player. I mean, it can always get worse. But I think the thing about Abdul Carter, people are equating that to Shedeur Sanders not throwing. I don't think it's the same thing. Shedeur Sanders isn't hurt. Abdul Carter, the last time we saw him play, was injured.
And I think,
I think it's fair to say we don't know if Abdul Carter would be going through combine drills if he was totally healthy. We don't have the answer to that.
Sure. And I get, though, his thought on that is these fans do want to see what their number one pick could be and what they do look like, because they don't have sometimes access to seeing the film, like he mentioned. So it is fun to be able to get a chance to see, like, this guy could be the dude for us at number one. But if you don't get to see him in all those things, it is kind of a bummer. I get that perspective too from a fan's viewpoint.
Coming up, the Titans and their front office and head coach. They're meeting with the media in Indianapolis at the NFL Combine. When we come back, you will hear from Brian Callahan and Mike Borgonzi as they meet with reporters at the NFL Combine after this.
It's Ramon Foster for the Wellness Institute of Nashville. I'm a little upset, y'all, because I got an appointment today I'm going to end up missing because we got to go to the Combine. But I tell you what, I still feel good since my last visit, man. They're good at it. If you're having any back issues or neck issues, man, I know you're probably thinking, well, I can get by. No. There's no sense in just getting by with it because your back, think about this in your spine area. All of your nerves go down your spine. So if you have low back issues or just back issues in general, listen, they can help you fix that, man. They have a lot, okay, of the state of the art spinal decompression machines that just lightly pull, man, or release and get some gaps in between your spine, man, to really help you out. And right now they also have the behind the lines offer, where it's $37 consultation. That includes a doctor visit, x-rays if you need them, and your first treatment so you can see. It's Ramon Foster for the Wellness Institute of Nashville. I'm a little upset.
RKW on 104.5. The Zone continues in hour 4 as we go to Indianapolis, and Tennessee Titans head coach Brian Callahan and GM Mike Borgonzi meet with the media. Here is Titans head coach Brian Callahan.
Making timing accuracy in scouting quarterbacks is not an exact science. You know, you can see over the years that there's been really quality players that you think had it that maybe didn't show up when it actually came time, and then there's ones that you weren't sure if they did and they show up and they play well. So those are things that we have to do our due diligence on and make sure that we're trying to unturn all the stones from the tape, from the person, from the workouts. All that stuff is a part of the process to try to make the best decision we can when it comes to evaluating quarterbacks in general. Yeah. Yeah, I think that there's a requisite arm strength, right? You have to be able to make a certain amount of throws down the field, outside the numbers, tight windows, those things. But then the other part of it is that the ability to anticipate and to make the decision that puts the ball in the right window. Those things all matter. So again, you don't have to have the strongest arm in the entire draft, but there's a threshold. There's a minimum requisite, I think, is the best way to put it. But the rest of that stuff matters, I think, just as much. Your ability to anticipate, to throw on time, and to throw accurately, and you mix that with the arm strength portion. So there's a lot of different ways it looks. There's a lot of different ways quarterbacks can play. So I hesitate to fit one bucket as more important than the other, but the whole picture.
And we have lost Brian Callahan. We'll try to get him back here in a second. Justin, if you want to grab Bert and we can get him in here. Jackson, if you could. There we go.
We got the audio here.
Working with it. Shortly. Any day now. Okay. Well, Brian Callahan and some technical issues on the Titans. And I do think interesting, and Jackson, you let me know when you've got him again. Interesting talking about not fitting quarterbacks just in one bucket.
Mm-hmm. And here's the other thing, Will, like when he was talking about that too, in terms of arm strength and not just being able to make the throw, but make it in the right spot. And also adding that it is hard to know exactly if you're going to hit on a quarterback or not. They could have a lot of stuff that makes you excited about it, and you don't hit on them, and it is what it is. And at other times, some quarterbacks surprise you, maybe go a little bit underrated. And so coming from a guy who knows about quarterbacks, it is still an uncertain process.
All right, I think we got Brian Callahan again here from Indy.
Yeah. There's sort of a two-pronged approach, right? There's the evaluation of the tape and what they've shown over their careers, and then there's learning about them as a person. You know, how do they see football? How do they interact with their teammates? How do they interact in your building when you bring them in? So all those touch points now are starting. So we've got the evaluation of the tape, and now you're trying to figure out how that tape matches up with the person and their knowledge of football, their knowledge of schematics, and where those things are good or where they might need to improve. And that's what this next, from now until the draft essentially is about, with the combine being the starting point, and you have your 30 visits in your spot. They have pro days, there's private workouts. All of those things factor into the process as you get closer to the draft. But right now is trying to find out as much as we can about the person as opposed to just them throwing in a workout. I think you're always looking for the player that's going to be better longer. So you always are looking for the long term. I think there's short term components that you're looking for, but you want players that are going to be, playing at their best for their longest, and hopefully for 10, 12, 15 years if you hit it right. And that's all positions. There's you want guys that are going to grow and continue to get better. Oh, absolutely, yeah. Anytime you're picking, especially in the first 3 rounds, you're looking for guys that can impact and play. But again, that doesn't necessarily mean that there's not other paths to that process. There's a lot of different ways it's been done over the years with guys that have spent time sitting, some guys have played right away. Those are all things that we'll evaluate as we keep going. But certainly picking a guy at the top of the draft that is going to be an impact player. That part's the hardest part, to be honest. That's a good question, because there's a lot of guys that can talk it in the meeting room. They know what to say, how to say it. They can articulate their schematics. But the hardest part is can they take what's being taught and then execute it? And sometimes it's really more about taking it from the practice, from the meeting room to the game day. That's the part that really matters the most, because guys can sometimes do the meeting room to the practice field, but it's about how do you execute under pressure and under duress when it's all live. And that's the hardest part to find out. Sometimes you don't necessarily know until you know. Oh yeah, there's ways you can try to simulate it as best you can to try to figure out where those gaps might be, or where you might be looking for supplementation to get them to that point. But yeah, there's definitely ways that we try to simulate that as best we can. It's not a perfect science though. Yeah, I think I would say probably for the area scouts, it's probably the hardest because years past, right, before all these guys transferred, you'd have 2, 3, 4 years of information gathering on a player. If you're an area scout, let's say you're the SEC, you're the Southwest area scout, and you're building 4 years worth of a profile on a player. Well, now these guys might transfer 2 times, usually at least once, sometimes twice. And now there's gaps in the information. The assistant coaches don't know them as well. You don't have the same depth of character evaluation that maybe you had before. So it's a changing landscape, and our guys have, just like everyone across the league, is adapting to. But I think there is an effect on how well you can know a player when they've jumped 2 or 3 times. You got to do your research, and you got to do your due diligence, and you got to make sure you talk to all the people at those places to sort of put the picture together. Whereas 10 years ago, you could have a pretty good profile built on a player over the course of 3-4 years. Oh, yeah. The area scouts are critical. That their ability to do that and find information. They're in the information gathering business. And their ability to do that now in a changing landscape, I think, is really, really critical. And those guys play a huge role in helping put together the profile of a player when it comes to their makeup. And it's certainly, landscape has changed, and they've done a good job adapting to it.
Is their role increased?
One more time, John. Oh, very realistic. Yeah. Yeah, it's very realistic. I think he's a unique player, that there's not a whole lot of other players you could compare what he's done. There's not many guys that have played that many snaps on both sides of the ball. And you watch his tape and you see his ability to play both at a very high level. So, yeah, I think anybody that you talk to about him is going to say the same thing, that he's got the ability to play both. And that I think you're going to find out where he fits if you were to get him. But he's got a really unique ability to do a lot of different things. Well, you got to start somewhere. I mean, you got to put your teeth in a position first, and then you see where you can add them in. So those are all conversations that we have as we work through the process on where a player like him. What do you do with a player like him, and where do you first start him, and where does he help you on all sides of the ball? So he can return punts. He can, he's got a really unique skill set that I don't think there's many players you can compare him to.
So where do you first start?
I would say you probably start him. He probably starts at corner. And then you find ways to interject him into the offense as he gets more comfortable. He plays more and more offensively. But I think his corner is probably his starting point. In my opinion, you might get varying opinions on that, but then I think he's got a real role as a receiver.
But offensive line is also really depth-heavy class.
Yeah.
How are you guys weighing that as you evaluate this?
Yeah, we got to get better up front. There's no doubt. We had too many sacks given up, too much pressure. We have to be able to settle that part down. We got to improve the front. I would say you got to improve the fronts on both sides. We're looking to add talent on both sides of the fronts, and I think you can see, the teams that were in it at the end there, that was a major part in their successes was their ability to play, stout, strong defense and pass rush, and then you got to be able to protect it. So we're always looking for trench players, I guess is the best way to put it. But yeah, there's always that outlier. If you could find a great guy, a guy that can score touchdowns at a high rate, that part factors in.
Brian, on that note, when you talk about the difference between fit and then talent level, how do you kind of measure where maybe a guy is a more physically gifted player but hasn't done things in college that fit what you might ask of him?
Yeah.
Versus a player who has done things that you've asked about but may not be the physical talent that maybe another prospect.
Sure. I think the best way to put that is our job as coaches is to put players in the best position to have success. And I would never sacrifice talent for system. It's always going to be player-driven and player first. So if you can find a great player, we fit them. And however that looks, there's plenty of plays in football in all three phases that you can find ways for guys to have success. So I would always say the player is going to come first, and it's our job as coaches to fit what we do around that player, whether that's an offensive lineman, a receiver, a quarterback, a pass rusher, whatever that looks like. Our job is to fit the system to the talent, and I would never sacrifice scheme over talent at the end of the day as a general philosophy. Oh, they're both worthy of the conversations that they're in right now. They're both good players. I think they've earned the right to be in the conversations they're in. As far as where I see them and how I stack them, that's for me. But I do think they're worthy of those conversations. There's some other good players in this class too, and I do think that one of the things that's most important is that you never make an assumption when you're in this process, and that you treat every prospect, whether you think they're the first pick or the 200 and something pick, that you go through that evaluation phase with the same intensity and thoroughness that you would regardless of where you think they fall. And so you have an accurate evaluation of all the players, where the class stands and how you'd stack the class. That's also really important because there's evidence over the years that there's a lot of players that in those later rounds that end up being impactful players. And so you just make sure that you do your due diligence on all the positions from the top of the class to the back of it, so you have a great feel for where those guys might fall.
Last one. Coming out and having some college kind of development this league.
Mm-hmm.
Is it harder to find offensive linemen or
I think there's a challenge to it because what they do in college is so different than what they're asked to do in the NFL. Usually you find some version of what they do that's good, whether they're a good run blocker or natural pass protector. And then there's going to be some development that has to take place. There's going to be a part of their game that they're going to have to get better at. And they're playing a different caliber of player, too, which, some of these tackles, they don't realize how good every week there's a $100 million pass rusher on the other side. There's development that goes into it, and you have to be able to do that. And that's the key for the offensive lineman is how quickly they can take to that coaching and perform. All right, thank you.
There is Tennessee Titans head coach Brian Callahan meeting with the media in Indianapolis. We are awaiting GM Mike Borgonzi in seconds to also take to the podium. Kayla, what stood out there to you from the head coach real quick?
Well, we haven't heard them talk a lot about Travis Hunter. I think the biggest thing I took from that is it's very realistic. He can play both ways, but they'd probably start him at corner if they were to go that route and then work him into some things in terms of wide receiver.
And just like that, Mike Borgonzi is up already. Here's the GM at the podium.
I would say we've had some phone calls. Yeah, I'll keep those phone calls to the vest, but we've had some phone calls, yeah. Listen, there's a handful of players, anytime at the top of the draft that you would deem generational talents, and we certainly feel that way this year as well. Well, it's a real skill set of talent, an impact player that can take the team to another level, whatever position it is. And then they also have to have the character makeup as well to go with it. Yeah. You know, I was there for 16 years, so, you know, we weren't just going to Super Bowls every year when I first got there. So, you know, in 2012, we had a 2-14 season where we had to, you know, rebuild it. So, yeah, you know, there's some things throughout that process that I'll take, you know, just in terms of building the core positions that you need on the roster, offensive line, defensive line, and then also just getting, you know, trying to build the culture right, too, to try to get the right type of people in there as well, people who are smart, tough, dependable, selfless players, team players. So that's what we're looking for right now. I'm sorry? Yeah, I mean, Abdul's a very good player. I don't want to go into many evaluations of the players, but like I said, there's certainly some players at the top there that fit that description of generational talent.
We saw firsthand what the Buccaneers did to the Chiefs and Mahomes, and then you see what the Eagles have done.
Mm-hmm.
Does that kind of skew like the level of importance you weigh on the trenches being able to impact the game?
Well, I think it's always important. I mean, you can have Superman back there, and if you don't have the protection up front to protect, to be able to run the football, to be able to create balance in the game, that's the most important part, is building through the trenches. So offensive line, defensive line is going to be a big priority for us. Yeah, we really haven't gone into too much of that. You know, I've fielded some calls at this point, but we really haven't gone too much into it right at this point. Yeah. So to answer your first question, the last few weeks we've been in meetings the whole time, draft meetings, free agency meetings, going over our roster as well, meeting with the coaches. So it's been a busy time. In terms of the strengths, I'd say obviously defensive line, specifically edge players. It's a really deep draft. I would say running backs, it's a good draft. There's some good tight ends in that position group. So I think it's a good draft overall, but there's certainly some positions that more strength and a little bit more depth in the middle to later rounds as well.
This team spent a lot of capital on offensive line. Does that factor in at all to what you're doing going forward because it hasn't spent a lot of capital at other positions?
No, not necessarily. I think we're starting this off on a clean slate right now. And offensive line, like I said, is going to be a top priority, whether that's through free agency, the draft, or anything, waiver claims, trades. We're going to look on every avenue really to add to that group. And I think the most important part too is adding the right type of players to that group too. So that's a tight knit group, that offensive line. So getting tough guys in there, smart, dependable, good teammates. The characteristics for that group are very important. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the goal we stated to like I said, draft picks are our biggest form of currency. So, we're always going to try to gather as many picks in the top 100 as we can. But we have to be disciplined through the process here, as we're going through and looking at free agents and, possible trades. We certainly want to hold on to our draft picks as much as we can. I'm sorry? Yeah, obviously get off, the ability to dip around the edge, and just having a relentless passion to get to the quarterback is a big part of it. So those qualities are, the things that we're really looking for. Sure, I mean, you can think that way. But, at the end of the day, we have to make the best decision at this point for the Titans. And if we deem like taking a quarterback is the most important thing right now, then we'll do that. But we have to go through this process here. So this is like one touch point in the process. We've gone through the whole evaluation part. Now we're finally getting to sit down and meet with these guys and talk with them. We'll have pro days. They'll have 30-day visits. So we have to go through the whole process really to make that decision.
You abide by kind of a height, weight, speed characteristic by position. When do you stray?
You know, we do. We always have. You don't want to make exceptions at certain positions. So we'll have a profile for each position. Now, you never want to just throw away a good football player. But we certainly have profiles for every position in terms of, you know, when we're making acquisition periods, whether it's free agency or the draft. Well, that's part of the strategy that you have to put together. Just like we're going to have a free agent strategy, there's going to be a draft strategy too. So we'll get together as a group and think through all that. But you certainly don't want to pass up on one of those players if you think they're there. And an opportunity to trade back, depends how far you can go back to get that player. So to your point, there's a strategy to it.
How would you define, one of the things that came up with being selective free agents, how would you define it? If you look at this organization last year, they spent a lot of money, didn't necessarily work out. What's your approach to being selective?
Well, I think in the press conference, you know, our philosophy is we want to draft and develop. You know, that's going to be our number one thing, number one priority. But to be selective is just to have discipline in the process. We're going to have targeted players that we want. And if sometimes, you know, that player doesn't come to us, we're not just going to jump to the next player. We're going to have players that we're going to target, and you have to have discipline throughout that process as well.
In targeting those players, though, there could be some big ticket guys, and obviously you have more holes than you can fill no matter what you might end up with.
Sure, Paul. I think that's part of the strategy too. We're trying to fill, you know, probably as many holes as we can before the draft, and you're trying to see. At this point, you have a free agency board, you have a draft board. You're trying to see the depth in free agency and the depth in the draft, and where you might be able to acquire those players. But you certainly want to try to fill as many holes as you can in free agency, and you know, we have some work to do on the roster.
What you do at quarterback in free agency, like that tip, what you're doing?
I don't think that will depend. I don't think those will go hand in hand. I mean, we could sign a quarterback in free agency and also draft a quarterback as well. Depends on the situation. You know, the places I've been, we've always had, you know, older quarterbacks kind of mentor the younger quarterback. It's almost like another coach in the room for them, just to kind of show them how to be a pro, teach them all the little things about protection and just how to study opponents. So yeah, that would probably be a priority for us if we did end up drafting a quarterback. Yeah. He's a special player, yeah, for sure. You know, we were watching him, and I don't know if there's anybody that's actually done what he's done in the modern day football, playing both offense and defense during the course of a season. So he's a special player. You know, I think we have some good interior guys right now with Sweat and Simmons. You know, there's some pieces on the roster. You know, Calvin's still a good receiver. But, you know, we have to get better throughout the offensive line. You know, and that's going to be a priority for us. You know, and that's part of the process here, too, is we're evaluating this roster, is trying to figure out, you know, where are the weak points right now? Where do we really have to improve? But there are some pieces on the roster that we can build on, and certainly that interior defensive line is one of them. You know, our hope is to compete every year for a division, Paul. But it's a process. So, you know, hopefully we're in contention this year. You always want to manage expectations, though. So, you know, as we go through this process, we acquire players. I think we'll have a better idea as we head into the season. I think he could. Yeah, I think he could. You've seen it. You've seen tape of it, and playing, you know, corner and receiver. So, you know, I think he can do both at a high level. Yeah, I mean, you take every drill into account. It's really just a validation of what you see on tape. Does the guy run as fast as you think he ran during when he was playing during the fall? And then it's almost like a red flag system too. So if there's some certain drills that they don't do well, that causes you to kind of go back and do a little more work in the tape to make sure you've seen it right as well. Yeah, so that was part of the process over the last few weeks, is really because we're trying to get everything done at once here, free agency draft, and we met with the coaches during lunch during these times just to get a feel of, the players on the roster, specifically, how they are in meeting rooms and everything else. So that's a big part of it. We met with Brian and his staff over the past month here. I think we're in good shape right now. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've been there before. I mean, it's arguably the most important position in sports, the quarterback position. So you have to get that right. We have to solidify that position. And we have Will on the roster right now, and he's going to compete with whoever we bring in. We have one quarterback on the roster, so we're bringing people in. And will compete with them as well.
That is Mike Borgonzi, Tennessee Titans GM. We will react to what we learned from him and Brian Callahan after this on 104.5 The Zone. Wrapping up the show this morning on RKW, Ramon, Kayla, and Will. And coming up next, the Buck Rising Show from Indianapolis, where Lucas gets the party started, and Buck will visit with Mike Borgonzi and Brian Callahan. Stay tuned for that at 10:30 and at noon this morning. If you missed it, Mike Borgonzi, Kayla, just a few minutes ago saying that they have had some calls and will keep those calls close to the vest about the number 1 overall pick. Let's start with what we heard from the GM. Anything significant you take away from what Borgonzi said?
Well, I will say this. He's done this a time or two in terms of not divulging too much information. He is a general manager, and especially when you have the number 1 overall pick, he's going to keep a lot of things close to the vest. Just even starting off with the question about Abdul Carter, because there's been a lot of questions about what do you consider a generational player. If you were to, go that route and pick a guy, what you're assuming is a dude like Abdul Carter. And he just said, I'm not going to go into too much about the traits of him, but he feels he's a good player. And there are players that fit that generational talent when just kind of speaking around Abdul Carter. So he also spoke a lot, though, about how there's a lot of depth in this draft when it comes to the defensive line and the edge position. Mentioned also at the running backs and tight end positions that there's a lot of depth there. Just when you bring up things like that, you could maybe assume that they are looking in later rounds to add if they have a talent available at that spot. In those later rounds, since it is pretty deep. And then the other thing that stood out to me is when asked about, bringing in a quarterback where you're not necessarily going to have the protection right away. And he said that. He said, you've got to be able to have that up front. And a lot of the holes that they have still on this team, they're going to go look in free agency. They're going to be picky about that. But I have a feeling they're going to definitely add to this offensive line starting in free agency.
Yeah. A couple other things I thought were interesting. I was asked about what it means to be selective in free agency. Mm-hmm. And I think specifically of how the Titans got Calvin Ridley when it comes to his answer, because he said, we're going to have targets, but we're not just going to jump to the next player, essentially, if they miss on those guys. We know for a fact the Titans jumped to Calvin Ridley after someone else got signed. And Calvin Ridley was kind of a plan B of the Titans had other players on their board. Then they went to go get Calvin Ridley after somebody else who we don't know for sure signed somewhere else. I think that is interesting because Titans fans take selective in free agency to mean, okay, we're not going to go pay Trey Smith a lot of money. Well, that's not necessarily the case.
Right.
It just means that if Trey Smith doesn't maybe get paid a lot of money by you, you're not just going to pay that money to someone else just because you have it. That's interesting.
Yeah, because you had mentioned being selective. He said we have to be disciplined in this process just because you are filling so many holes and you have to make sure it's the right fit for what you're looking to do. And he even mentioned when you look at that offensive line in particular, which needs a lot of help, he wants to add the right players. He mentioned tough, smart, dependable, good teammates. Those are all things that they're looking for when they're going out there, whether it's in free agency or the draft on that line.
Other notes from what Mike Borgonzi said, he sees generational talents, plural, at the top of this class. Mentioned as well at the end, he said, we only have one quarterback on the roster. Yep. That's Will Levis. He will compete with whoever is brought in. Mm-hmm. I don't put a lot of stock in that because what do you want him to say? Will Levis stinks, and we're trying to trade him. Well, okay, even if you were trying to trade him, your value for him drops significantly the second you say that. So, of course, he is going to say, yeah, Will Levis is our quarterback. He's on the roster. Yeah, because if someone does offer for him, he wants that offer to be for a quarterback that they want in the court of public opinion, not a quarterback he doesn't want. I don't put any stock in that whatsoever. That is Borgonzi saying what he has to say. It's the same thing as Terry Fontenot right now saying Kirk Cousins is our backup for Michael Penix. Well, yeah, of course he is, but he's got a roster bonus you got to pay March 17th that you're not going to pay. You want people to want to trade for a quarterback that's not available, not one who is available.
Yeah, I mean, long story short, too, they have to have more quarterbacks in there. So he didn't say specifically what it was. Of course, you're going to have more quarterbacks in the room. It's just Will Levis. You have to always have the competition to back up. So
that is right. He mentions draft board has been initially set, expect small movements, but that they have an initial board and a first pass through that has been set. Mike Berganzi says that, and interesting. I thought the note that I want to get into more tomorrow. We're out of time because Buck is up next from Indy, but he says there are Brian Callahan. That is says talent always over fit.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yep. That's
especially
a big one.
At quarterback.
Exactly.
Out of time this morning. We'll catch up more with Ramon from Indy tomorrow. That does it for your Tuesday RKW. Tune in for Mike Berganzi at 10:30. Brian Callahan at noon. And the Buck Rising Show from Indy is on deck.